life, the Republicans are actually putting on a good show. And that's a big part of this, isn't it? The showmanship aspect?
I mean, absolutely. And I think it's really hard, right? There's no playbook for this. I said this 2 weeks ago on my radio show at Fox. I was like, look, we should cut both of these parties some slack. They had very little time to prepare for this. It is an extremely bizarre set of circumstances. To call it not ideal is a massive understatement. And the Republicans had even less time to get ready for it. And they don't have Hollywood on their side. So I said, look, my prediction in my head, and I didn't say this on the air, I said, if I had to guess, I think the Democrats would probably put on a better show for those reasons. They had more time to prepare than they have these best and brightest glittering stars of Hollywood. And damn it, the Republicans, to my eye, if you separate out the ideas, the policy, any of it, the personalities, in terms of a program, in terms of watchability, it's not even that close in my book. I think the Republicans are winning that battle head to head. Whether it matters, I don't know, but that unto itself is a feat that I have to say I am pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Good evening, everyone, across the Townhall Media websites, on our live stream, as well as our social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook Live. Larry O'Connor here for townhall.com. It's our fourth and final night of the Republican National Convention. We continue our extensive coverage. And, well, the gentleman next to me needs no introduction. Guy Benson's name has been associated with politics and town hall for a very long time. You can't say town hall politics without Guy Benson. Guy, great to have you on our final night here to sort of wrap things up for us. Good to see you.
Great to see you, too. This is great.
And you mentioned just a moment ago your Fox News radio talk show, 3 hours every day, nationally syndicated. What is the reaction so far from your listeners, from the base? You know, we're told these conventions are just preaching to the choir. There's, you know, it's important to preach to the choir. You want the choir on your side. You want them excited.
Well, you need the choir on your side. You need the choir fired up and finely tuned and ready to perform for you when it counts, on Sunday, or in this case, a Tuesday in November. And so part of it is making sure that the base is really motivated and ready to go and will turn out. We know that there's going to be an enormous amount of motivation on the other side to defeat President Trump. We saw a bit of that imbalance in 2018, and the Republicans had a tough night. They had a friendly Senate map, which they do not have this time in 2020. But other than that, it was a big Democratic wave election. So what I think the Trump campaign and the Republicans are hoping for is to say, all right, we have to absolutely lock down our base, but we can't just feed them a steady diet of red meat all night long, because there will be some persuadable voters who tune in, people who may not approve of President Trump's job performance, people who may be tired of some of the drama and they might want to go back to quote unquote normal, and Biden seems sort of safe. They have to make a play for those people. And I think thus far, they're striking a balance that has, again, like the production values, has exceeded my expectations on that front as well.
Yeah, you know, there's always been a certain core, you know, tick the boxes, conservative ideas that are addressed at these conventions. We've seen them every 4 years. But some of those messages that are so important to conservative voters and Republican voters have been addressed in a way that I don't remember. I have no recollection of the life issue being presented in such a passionate way, in such a compelling and emotional way.
Yeah, typically, I was actually thinking about this. I think one of the main reasons that I am a conservative is because I'm pro-life. And, you know, you can get into debates about exceptions and this and that and the other, but overall, on the spectrum, I'm definitely on the pro-life side. It matters a lot to me. And typically at these conventions, thinking through my mind back, I've been attending them since '04 in various capacities. Usually there's one short line in the nominee's speech, right? On that Thursday night, they'll say, and we welcome every life and value every life, whether in the womb or through, you know, our senior citizens to natural death. And there's an applause line, and there's one or two people put on sort of in a Zoom call meeting during the day. One or few people, like one or two, may mention it from time to time. It has been front and center for a number of speakers. It has been mentioned frequently, not just early in the program when it's only C-SPAN audience, in the middle of prime time as well. They clearly, believe in it, and believe in it politically as well, in the sense that they're like, okay, if we're going to wring every single vote that we need out of this election, we absolutely need committed pro-lifers to not just be kind of like, well, maybe. We need them to, like, every single one of them show up and vote. And it's a very strong play. And it's kind of been refreshing to see them lean into it, because I think history, and we talk about being on the right side of history, it's a term people talk about. I think on this one, especially the barbarism of, late-term abortion and stuff, I think we're on the right side of history and forcing the issue a little bit and holding the mirror up to what the extremists on the other side believe. Fair game and the right thing to do.
Well said, Guy. And now what is interesting to me about especially last night's presentation has to do with what has always sort of been conservative Republican doctrine on national security policies. And listen, I thought Richard Grenell's speech was great. I think that is a star is born in the Republican Party last night with Rick Grenell. His message, though, about our America's national security, very different than what we would have heard, say, in 2004 or in 2008.
Oh, I mean, yes, right. You had at the Republican convention in 2020, people speaking and saying things that would have probably been booed heavily at the 2004 Bush convention. Of course, it was a different time after 9/11, and we've come a long way. We've learned some lessons. There are some threads that are consistent, though, like peace through strength all the way back to Reagan. That's still a thing, right? That's part of the Trump doctrine. I don't always agree with every element of the Trump doctrine on foreign policy. I have some problems with it. I think some of the ways he goes about some of it, I've objected to. But I think Grenell explained it to the American people. What does America first mean to this president in terms of policy? I think he explained it very well. And I think that there are people in the bipartisan national security consensus who would be upset to learn how many Americans on both ends of the spectrum were probably vibing with what Rick Grenell was describing. And I might be more of an establishmentarian on that kind of stuff, but I can recognize when there is a bipartisan consensus blind spot that is not speaking for the country writ large. And I think that where Trump is and where the Trump administration is on these issues is probably closer to most voters at this point. And one other thing I want to say, Larry, about Rick Grenell, and full disclosure, he's a friend. How interesting and how cool, and in some ways how refreshing is it? This is a man who is a trailblazer, right? He is the first ever openly LGBT cabinet level member of a presidential cabinet ever from either party. And what we see a lot from the identity politics crowd, you would expect Rick to get up and give a big speech about that. Instead, it's just, that's who he is, it's what he's accomplished, and he did not even reference it. And he stuck to policy, and he made an explanation, and I think it was a compelling one that then the vice president followed up on in a couple really tough attacks on Joe Biden. I mean, it is a very different Republican Party than it was in 2004, for worse in some respects, I think, and certainly for better in other respects.
Guy Benson is with us as we do our preview of our night 4, the final night of the Republican National Convention. And it'll be a pretty big night. The President of the United States will be appearing and officially accepting his nomination for re-election.
It's the season finale.
It is the season finale. That's correct. I'm a big fan of every season of The Apprentice. Do you have concerns about it's funny, I was speaking with somebody very close to me about this and earlier this evening, and they said, is he really accepting this from the White House? I have problems with that. And that's still a thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, what do you think of that? I mean, he tried to go to Charlotte, they couldn't. He tried to go to Jacksonville. I mean, what's he supposed to do? Right.
So I think I have something of a problem with it because I think some norms matter. But this is a very strange year, as we began this conversation talking about. And as you said, they were 0 for 2 because of unforeseen circumstances, extenuating circumstances in 2 other cities and states. We do have a lot of the people very angry about him doing it from the White House are the same people screaming, stay at home. And he literally is.
Yes.
Right. So he's doing it from his house. Of course, he travels elsewhere and so on and so forth. And I do wish that they would have more people in this audience in masks than what we've seen. I think that would be setting a better example. I don't think it should be a matter of course that this type of thing is acceptable, but we're in the middle of a pandemic. It's very strange. They would have to get some outdoor venue anyway, and there could be disruptions and there could be security things. I can't bring myself to get that worked up over it. If it were a normal year, I would have a problem with this. But it's not a normal year. Everyone's doing things and improvising. And so, is it ideal in every way? No. Is it something that it's going to like raise my blood pressure at all? No, not under these circumstances.
One part of these conventions that stays consistent regardless of the pandemic or who's the president or the nominee is that this is also a bit of a proving ground for the bench. It's an audition process for who might be coming forward 4 years from now. Obviously, Vice President Mike Pence is going to be a front runner immediately for 2024. And he gave a fine speech last night. But we're looking at Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. We're looking at former Ambassador Nikki Haley. I thought Senator Tim Scott really threw his hat into the ring in his own way. Frankly, Rick Grinnell, if it's not for national office, I think Rick Grinnell should run for, and I think he made a case to run for office. Tonight, we're going to see Senator Tom Cotton. Who's on your radar, and who do you think so far has performed well enough to say, yeah, we got to keep an eye on this guy 4 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, you ran through, I think, a bunch of the names. It's hard to think too much about the next one because we're in the thick of the current one. But I would say that first night, both South Carolinians, Haley and Scott, were really impressive, and I think really did appeal to a lot of people across the center-right spectrum in a way that was sort of approachable, accessible. Tim Scott is just eminently likable. And his story is amazing, and he told it very well. And the thing is, some of the speeches that I think have been most impactful aren't from politicians, right? The Cuban,
yes, I agree.
Right? The Chinese dissident, the lobster guy, right? Like there have been some people who've come up and told their story. It's like, whoa, and they've packaged it well. A lot of these speeches are relatively compact and short, and it's been a lot of fun. The big question is this going to move the needle at all? Yeah. The Democrats got no bounce, but they're ahead, right? So they didn't really necessarily need a bounce. There's a case that they've hit their ceiling. I know we're up on the program about to begin. I'll just say this: if they put on a really good program, which I think they have, we'll see what happens tonight. If they put their best foot forward, plus all the chaos in Kenosha and Minneapolis and sort of a narrative builder happening concurrently, if that combination of factors does not result in any bounce for the Trump ticket, I think at headquarters they're probably going to be panicking a little bit. But we'll see. We'll know in a couple days, right?
Yeah, we will. We're a few seconds away, I should say. What states, because you have such a fine political vision on these things, on where the fights are really taking place. What states are you watching the most right now as these polls come in over the next 3 months?
Well, I want to see Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Those are the 3 biggest ones. Iowa needs to move into a lean Republican status. Wisconsin needs to move into a toss-up status. And so does Minnesota. And you can tell the campaign has an eye on Minnesota. Those are the 3 I'm currently watching most closely.
The fact that Minnesota's on that list really says something about the map. And you're right. The campaign keeps talking about it all the time. They think Minnesota is absolutely up for grabs.
More so than Michigan.
Guy Benson is the political editor at townhall.com. He's a vital voice on our site, and we thank you so much for joining us. Get to watch on the show because you got to prepare for your nationally syndicated radio show tomorrow.
Yes,
thank you, Guy.
Thank you.
All right, let's get to it. Let's go to the stream, and we are ready to begin night 4 of the Republican National Convention.
The freedom to do what is right and good for yourself, your family. to reap the blessings of hard work, to accomplish dreams, to live securely, to help others. Not by force of government, but by goodness of heart, where rights are not granted by government or claimed by identities, but are unalienable as members of the human race. Today, America's greatness is challenged by those with extreme notions. Defunding law enforcement as lawlessness abounds. Hateful rhetoric, telling you what to wear and when you can work, limiting free speech and freedom of worship. Old ideas of socialism repackaged in redefined words. Let us restore the values that made America great.
We will make America strong again.
Return to the higher standard.
We will make America proud again.
A land of freedom of speech, of worship.
We will make America safe again.
A land of security and prosperity.
And we will make America great again.
A land of greatness.
Welcome, everyone, to Townhall Media's coverage of the fourth night of the Republican National Convention.
Tonight,
we've got Chris Stigall from AM 990, The Answer, Philadelphia, joining us now. Chris, good to see you. Happy first night of the Republican National Convention.
Thank you, pal. Looking very, very forward to tonight. This has been a really great week. And you know it's an important night because you're wearing a tie.
Which art in heaven.
Oh, we're having a prayer. Let's
the
pray.
great bounty you have bestowed on this nation and the many blessings we have received these past 4 years. We are forever grateful. As we come tonight, our country is facing trouble. Tens of thousands are in the path of a deadly storm. The pandemic has gripped millions of hearts with fear. We're divided. We have witnessed injustice. Anger and despair have flowed into the streets. We need your help. We need to hear your voice at this crucial hour. We ask that you would unite our hearts to be one nation under God, for you are our only hope. We declare today our total dependence upon you and our need of repentance as a people. I thank you tonight for our President, Donald J. Trump. We pray that you would give him wisdom from on high, clarity of vision, and strength as he leads this nation forward. Bless him. We pray for our First Lady, Melania, their son, Barron, and all of the family. Protect them and keep them strong and safe. We thank you for Vice President Mike Pence, for his steady hand and clear voice. We pray for Second Lady Karen Pence and their family. Father, we know that you can make this nation great once again if we turn our eyes and our hearts to you and follow your word in obedience. May your will be done on this earth as it is in heaven. And we pray this in the mighty name of your Son, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
We will have the
to the
Pledge of
flag
Allegiance.
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I always forget that I got to stand. My chair is moved out of the way.
As Americans,
Now we're going to have a very dramatic
we
video.
carve our own destiny. As Americans, we look forward, not backward. Our ancestors braved the unknown. They built this nation brick by brick. They lifted up millions from poverty, hunger, and disease. They vanquished fascism and communism. A great nation because of great people. And no one has done more to protect and advance it than President Trump. As Republicans, we are proud to stand with him and to work for you. Together, we built the greatest economy the world has ever seen, and we will do it again. We confronted China head on, tore up bad trade deals and made better ones, supported our men and women in uniform, and took out the world's top terrorists, achieved energy independence, defended the sanctity of life, and restored law and order at the border. But as every American knows, we face an invisible enemy that we didn't ask for nor invite, but we will defeat it. We will defeat it because America is where innovation happens, and we are developing a vaccine in record time. We will defeat it because President Trump unleashed a Marshall Plan for Main Street and put hardworking taxpayers back on their feet. We will defeat it because tough times don't last. Tough Americans do. And that is what this election is all about. You, not us. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris think this election is about the government. They're wrong. It's about your family and your future. And to secure what really matters, we will call on the bedrock of what makes us the greatest country in the world, the American promise. A promise that everyone is equal under God, under the Constitution and under the law. A promise that government is accountable to we the people. A promise that if you work hard and play by the rules, your opportunities are endless. As Republicans, it's our mission to renew the American dream, restore our way of life, and rebuild the greatest economy in the world. The Socialist Democrats have a different agenda. They will dismantle our institutions, defund our police, and destroy our economy. So as you cast your vote this November, remember this. 4 years ago, President Trump promised to be your voice. He kept that promise, but there's still so much more to do. The choice before you could not be clearer. Forward in freedom or backward in socialism. Forward in prosperity or backward in poverty. Forward in personal liberty or backwards in more government control. I know which direction I'm headed. Join us, as the best is yet to come.
You know, Chris, when they walk and talk while looking at the camera, you know they're serious, and that would be that was actually paid for by McCarthy for Congress. That's very funny.
I know. I have to be honest with you about something. I'm not nuts about Kevin McCarthy. Is that wrong? Kevin McCarthy feels a holdover from the John Boehner. Well, he literally is a John Boehner, Eric Cantor kind of holdover. Wouldn't you like to see a more dynamic, fresher face in that post? I hate to say that. Maybe I shouldn't tonight, but
yeah, no. However, I said the same thing about Paul Ryan. I wanted Paul Ryan to be that fresher, younger face, and he didn't turn out very good either. But I hear you about Kevin McCarthy. As my colleague in D.C. here on WMAL, Chris Plant, likes to say about Kevin McCarthy, he wants to be speaker. One of the first rules of being speaker is you need to be able to speak.
That's profoundly true. No truer words.
He has issues with that. By the way, I was just going to look up.
Not a very dynamic guy.
No. I was going to look up the speaker list tonight, so I went to type in GOP.com, and I erroneously put GOOP.com, Goop.com, which is, of course, Gwyneth Paltrow's website, where they talk about female body parts. So I apologize for that error. Now I'm a little behind schedule on who the speakers are, but we will be hearing.
I like the look of this guy, though. Isn't he a handsome guy? This
is Geron Smith. He is a advisor to the president. He focuses mostly on empowerment zones. And some of the issues affecting the inner cities. He's a good guy, actually, Geron Smith.
He's also my personal stylist.
Is he? Yes, he is. He's got the Chris Stigall look. Tonight we will hear from former Mayor Rudy Giuliani of New York. We will hear from Alice Johnson, who famously had her life sentence for drug charges commuted. She was sentenced to life because of Joe Biden's crime bill. We will hear from Dana White, president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. The president of UFC will be on the podium tonight. We will, of course, hear from Ivanka Trump. We will hear from Senator Tom Cotton. We will hear from Mitch McConnell. We will hear from Secretary Ben Carson, and we will hear from the President of the United States. As always, Chris Stigall, I'd like to check in with you and hear what the reaction was this morning. Those very important suburban voters in Pennsylvania, suburban Philadelphia, what were they saying this morning after the third night of the convention?
Without peer, I would have thought, I don't know what I thought. Maybe I went in with some bias thinking that the Mike Pence speech was a lights out home run, which it was, but Mike Pence was not the star of the night with my constituency anyway. Kayleigh McEnany won rave reviews with her personal story about her mastectomy. That touched a whole lot of people in a very, very personal way, because that's not a side of her we've seen before. One caller said, "I'd like to see the jackals in the press. Do you think that gives them pause for half a second? The way they talk to her is almost subhuman. Do you think that gives them pause to think for half a second the way they treat her?" I'm not sure it does.
Yeah.
But it's a softer side to a position that is normally considered pretty tough. When you think about how we've come and evolved from that post and the way our country talks to one another, I think about often the great late Tony Snow. You know, what an avuncular, deep, abiding man of faith, calm, nice, smart, sophisticated guy, know how to speak media ease. I miss that in a way. I know that sounds silly today, but I don't know. It was almost like he knew their game. They knew he knew their game. He was a generally likable guy, and so there was a modicum of respect where he could just kind of good-natured say, "Guys, let's not do this. You know what you're doing, and I know what you're doing." And they would say, "Okay, you got us, Tony." Those days are gone. It's like hand-to-hand combat every day. I miss, I don't know. I guess I'm pining away for a day gone by, but Kayleigh was a home run.
It is
last night.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would not have guessed that Kayleigh. I mean, I thought Kayleigh McEnany was fantastic. I didn't know that she has resonated so much. It's funny. My listeners who called in to express their excitement about it, it was a combination of Madison Cawthorn and Rick Grinnell. They liked those two speeches.
We did get comments on them. Also, a powerful moment was the Soldier Strong folks, when it appeared in a very authentic moment that the president and the vice president, the first and second lady, both went down off the risers and met with the men and women of our armed forces who have either lost limb. Those Soldier Strong people, I've had the privilege of being at a couple of fundraiser events with them out of Boston. Extraordinarily expensive equipment, but what they've been able to do to give mobility back to our heroes that have lost their mobility, it is, boy, it'll bring a tear to your eye. That was a moving moment.
Oh, it's Iron Man stuff. It's like the exoskeleton that Tony Stark invented. It is truly incredible.
Exactly.
And, which, by the way, brings me back to Kevin McCarthy's opening statement. You know, he addressed the COVID-19 issue straight on, and he said, you know, America is going to get through this because America is all about innovation. America is all about solving challenges. We're not only are we going to get through this, we're going to be the ones who save the world by getting through this. That's, again, there was some criticism of the Republicans for not addressing the COVID-19 pandemic as forthrightly as certain people in the media believe they should. Well, they certainly did tonight, and they said, hell yeah, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Thank God America's here to fix it.
Yes, and, you know, there's a new bit of news today. Well, there were 3 bits of news today on COVID that were all good, really, or at least shades of good. Is it Abbott Labs? I'm trying to find. Yeah, Abbott launches a $5 coronavirus test that yields results in 15 minutes without needing any lab equipment. It will significantly speed testing efforts, reports Bloomberg. 50 million tests a month headed our way. $5 tests, results in 15 minutes. 50 million tests a month from Abbott Labs. Another development, the EPA, or I guess FDA, I'm not sure which, EPA, has just sanctioned some cleanser, some disinfectant that kills COVID on surfaces. American Airlines is going to start using it. And then the CDC said today, if you're asymptomatic, you really don't need to get wound up about getting tested. All 3 of those stories, I think, were positive developments that were universally dumped on and buried in most mainstream media coverage today.
Well, and I'll add a 4th one that broke in the 5 o'clock Eastern hour. The governor of Maryland, right here in the D.C. area, announced that every county in Maryland is authorized to open up regular school days with children in the classrooms because they've hit all of the marks on COVID-19.
Right?
Yeah, now he doesn't have the power to force those counties to do so, but he said, listen, the numbers are there. There's nothing keeping you from going back to school. And that's Governor Larry Hogan, who is, you know, hardly a Trump supporting Republican or hardcore Republican in that vein.
Now, Larry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're going to want to hear Jeff Van Drew. This is the South Jersey congressman who just flipped from Democrat to Republican. He's good. We had him on yesterday.
I became a Republican says a lot about today's Democratic Party. I'm from South Jersey, where we work hard, look after our neighbors, and care about our communities. Years ago, I was a local dentist and was asked by the Democrats to run for a town council seat. I had my doubts, and I explained that my views were middle of the road to conservative, but the local leaders said the Democratic Party was a big tent and that they accepted people like me. I was elected to council as a Democrat, but as I won seats for county office, state legislature, and then Congress, I noticed things were changing. The Democratic Party had become less accepting of American tradition, less believing in American exceptionalism, less supportive of traditional faith and family. This was not the party that I knew. In 2018, after being elected to Congress as a Democrat, I was already uncomfortable with a San Francisco liberal running the House, which is why my first vote in Congress was cast against Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. But imagine how I felt after seeing members of the squad quickly take control of the Democratic Party just weeks after being elected. The party had moved from liberal to radical. This new Democratic Party wasn't just for higher taxes. Now they were for open borders, against our police, and against our God-given rights. When the radical Democrats went after President Trump with impeachment, they made another mistake. Democratic leaders told me that I had to vote for impeachment or my life would be made difficult, and I wouldn't be allowed to run again. Listen, I'm from South Jersey, and you better come at me with more than just loud words and empty threats. I voted no on impeachment, and it was an easy call. Soon after, I met with President Trump, and he made me feel more comfortable and welcome in the Oval Office than Nancy Pelosi ever made me feel in her caucus. And a few days later, I officially changed parties, and I became a Republican. Let me tell you about Joe Biden. When the Democrats tried to order me around, I was ready, willing, and able to say, I've had enough with their radical socialist agenda. Do you really believe Joe Biden is ready, willing, and most of all, able to do the same? As Joe says, come on, man. Joe Biden is being told what to do by the radicals running my former party, the same radicals trying to install him as their puppet president. When I'm at my local diner, I tell people that America is the best nation in the world and that President Trump has helped make it that way. Republicans, independents, and even Democrats, they all know that in President Trump's America, we have a strong military, strong support for our police, strong support for our veterans, and strong support for our seniors. In President Trump's America, we have a strong supply chain, good schools, we're energy independent, and we protect our environment. There are a lot of Democrats who support our president and are disgusted for what their old party, what my old party, has become. Here's my advice. Be true to who you are now, not who the Democrats used to be. That's why I'm a proud Republican and why I will be voting for Donald Trump. Thank you. And may God bless you, God bless our president, and God bless the United States of America.
Wow. All right. So, Chris Stigall, South Jersey is a Philadelphia suburb. So this is your territory. Tell us about how that message resonates, because honestly, it's not necessarily about Jersey as much as it is about Pennsylvania.
No, that's right. And this was a shot heard round the region in our part of the world. South Jersey is the home to Kellyanne Conway, Blueberry Queen of Hamilton, New Jersey. And you might remember he had a rally right after he switched parties in January. It's one of the last things we all got to do publicly together before COVID. He came to Wildwood, New Jersey.
I remember.
Well, actually, yeah, South Jersey, actually, the shore points of South Jersey are actually quite conservative, believe it or not. Atlantic County, Ocean County. But New Jersey's always considered deep blue. So very rare. In fact, I don't know historically when the last time they said a Republican president had even come to rally. But Trump came to South Jersey to rally for Jeff Van Drew. Raucous day in January, cold, blustery day on the shore. And it was an arena packed with people to hear Van Drew talk about why he left the Democrat Party, and Donald Trump and Kellyanne Conway came. It was such a fun time. And I've had him on a couple of times since to explain, and he did it well there, why he left the party. And I've asked him how he's been treated since. And here's something interesting he told me, Larry. I asked him point blank. I said, don't name names. I don't want you to betray confidences. Are there any colleagues of yours in the Democrat Party who have come to you and said, Jeff, thanks, and I'd like to do it too? And he said, Chris, honestly, yes, there have been. He said, but none of them are willing to do it because I'm the first member of Congress ever in history to leave the majority party and join the minority party. It's not done. That doesn't happen in Congress.
That's fascinating. That is, of course, we do see it go the other way often, and it makes sense because you go where the power is and the committee seats are and all the appropriations. That is fascinating. That was very good to hear from Representative Jeff Van Drew there. And beyond that part of the story, he also went in a direction that that they haven't really gone yet in this convention. And this is one thing I heard from some of my listeners today. They said, I wish they would talk more about Joe Biden's lack of ability to be president. This is a thing. I mean, let's face it. And the president's sort of been dancing around about drug tests and things like that. But what Congressman Van Drew just said was, he said, does anyone here think that Joe Biden is ready, willing, and most importantly, able to get the job done? Do you think they're going to go further in that direction tonight and speak the unspoken about Joe?
I don't know, but Dana Perino, who is notoriously cautious with her words in her analysis last night on Fox News, when the evening was wrapped up at Fort McHenry, and Pence nailed it, and then President Trump and Melania come out, and they have this beautiful scene there in Baltimore. Dana said something, and I'm paraphrasing. She said, if anything, I think the Biden-Harris ticket is looking at this tonight and realizing they've got to figure out how to get out of Delaware. And I laughed at first, but there's some seriousness in it. They have trapped themselves, and the optics of it look really poor. And they're realizing now how poorly they're coming off, that he's just hiding. There's another story today that he's gone to his retreat home in Bethany Beach, Delaware, where I guess he's going to continue to, or Rehoboth, I don't remember which, where he's just going to continue to hide. And he seems very confident in that. And I think that is emblematic of who the man is. He's like Howard Hughes.
But of course,
is he?
But the fingernails are curling at this point. But of course, that reduces the concern about Joe Biden just down to he's staying in his basement under the guise of COVID, and it's very programmed and controlled and limited. But that is all sort of dressing around the very real concern that people have that he's not all there, that he doesn't have the cognitive ability to do the job.
Well, and you can confirm this. I had heard today that Kamala Harris was going to be dispatched to D.C. or to offer some kind of commentary.
She delivered a speech today around 3 p.m. Eastern in Washington, D.C. to do counter-programming. If you're going to do counter-programming, you put your nominee out.
Right. So that tells you a lot, right? That she's being sent out to do the heavy lifting. Just striking. Whereas, again, juxtapose it, and I don't know that people make this connection. Donald Trump insisted on being omnipresent every minute of this event for the last 4 days. Yeah. And Biden is literally taking himself completely out of sight. It's just striking. I don't know if the American public connects that or not. I don't know. Maybe subconsciously they do. The beauty, the pageantry, the power, the pride in this week versus that kind of, again, I know it's been overused, dark or dystopian or whatever, but it's like everything about it. It was this kind of bubble wrapped, cautious, malaise, sad, scared, hectoring, masked up. It looked like a Batman film, like we were watching Gotham on parade last week or something. I compared to this, it's like night and day.
Exactly. That's very funny. Let's check in with well, I don't know, why is Dan Scavino on the no offense to Dan Scavino, but I mean,
no offense, but why the hell are you there? Boy, have I heard that 1,000 times. Hey, no offense, but who invited you?
No, I brought you to that party. It was Chris, you should have dropped my name. Let's check in with Dan Scavino from the White House. And see what
I'm Match Clap's cousin. Is that okay?
He's building yours. He knows the president cannot be bullied. President Trump is the first leader who's been too strong, too tough, and too savvy to be crushed by the status quo establishment and the political media class. You know the president cannot be beaten. He's got a fighting spirit, like so many of you do. And winning for America is what he does. While they call it chaos, President Trump calls it change. Just think about what we achieved together with President Trump. The strongest economy in history, the lowest unemployment rate for almost all demographic groups. Black Americans,
I'm making a
Hispanic Americans, women.
I'm calling an audible here. My instincts were right. I mean, listen, this is the kind of speech that you're used to at a convention.
Yeah, why are we? You're right. Why this? I don't know why. I'm sure he's a fine guy. I don't know him. I think I've had him on the show, but why?
I don't know. And we do have a lot of speakers. And again, once again, there's a lot coming up. Once again, if anyone is annoyed that we're talking over the speakers, because I don't know. Have you heard from your listeners? They're really angry. Well, Fox News is apparently Fox News never they pull away from all the listeners, and people are upset and they want to watch the speeches. Here's the deal, as Joe Biden would say. Over at townhall.com, we have our live blog going on. All of our crack political analysts, even Matt Vespa is part of it. And you can watch the live blog, and then there is a direct video feed without any interruptions there. So we're giving you the best of both worlds here at townhall.com.
Well,
so,
listen,
if you don't want to hear,
we've never done this. To your credit, this is brand new, uncharted territory for Town Hall. Thanks to Larry O'Connor. Let's give credit where it's due. This has never been offered before.
It hasn't. However, part of what we're providing is the judgment to say we don't have to listen to Dan Scavino list off all of the accomplishments of the Trump administration.
That's why. I mean, if you're just going to listen to a white guy talking, why not two qualified white guys talking?
Exactly. We do it for a living. That's right. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw this or not, Chris, but you know the story of Captain David Dorn, the police officer who was slain in the protests, the riots. I believe was it in St. Louis or Kansas City? Captain Dorn, do you remember? In St. Louis. Yes. I'm just seeing this now, and I did not know this until just now. And forgive me if this was already announced. His widow is going to be speaking tonight. The widow of the slain police officer, Captain Dorn, will be on the stage tonight. And that sort of and you saw during Kevin McCarthy's speech a lot of images of the fires and the looting and the riots. That has become, frankly, I think the bigger than the COVID story in this convention, Chris.
I think we talked about it last night. You probably played the audio or heard the audio by now. I assume people watching. Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon lamenting the polling on this is starting to go sideways. They're sort of pleading with their core viewership. Please stop the rioting. It's not working anymore. It was really pathetic. Yeah. But that was basically their assessment. Stop rioting. It's hurting us in the polls. Never mind. It's destroying minority-owned businesses and lives. It's hurting our polling.
Yeah, not that it's illegal, immoral, unethical, innocent people are being harmed and even killed. No. You're helping Trump. Well, and to that end, I mean, first of all, that's huge that his widow will be on the stage tonight. But also, when I saw that Rudy Giuliani, a very loyal supporter of President Trump, and of course the former mayor of New York, when I saw that he was going to be on the slate, I assumed he was going to talk about Ukraine and Burisma and all of the legal issues. But I wonder if he's going to be there to talk about what Bill de Blasio, Andrew Cuomo, and the Democrats have done to the city that he created.
I hope. I mean, let's be honest. That's what brought Rudy to the dance. Rudy talking Ukraine is not the Rudy I want at this convention. So let's pray. I pray to God on high that the Rudy wearing the glasses with the facial just stop it. I don't want to hear a word about Ukraine. If it happens, I'm out. No, Rudy is famous for being Rudy because he's America's mayor. That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Can we get Franklin Graham back out here to add that to the prayer? We need Franklin Graham to pray.
But you know what I mean?
Lord, while you're at it.
Rudy was America's mayor for being the 9/11 mayor, for being the law and order mayor. That's what made him famous. That's why he ran for president and was considered a significant real possibility at one point. Now he's become the weird kind of gargoyle-y, Ukraine, and I talked to Yushchenko, and I got the paperwork, and I got the loose paperwork under my arm.
On the red string like he's in Homeland.
It's like, dude, just be the law and order guy. That's why we love you. Stay there.
Yeah. We shall see. I wonder, since there has been a lot of discussion tonight so far about that. This is interesting. The American athlete. Do we want to take a look at this, considering what the NBA has done to sports in America? Let's take a quick look at this.
But I've got an awful lot to look for.
And your relentless will to win. These qualities embody the American spirit of pushing boundaries, defying limits.
It's a game cast in sports immortality.
And always striving for greatness. You stayed in the fight. You finished the fight. Often bumpy roads lead to beautiful places. This great building is celebrating great people. And your winners all.
Would you please rise for the playing of our national anthem?
It's our honor to be in the company of great champions.
Team USA will indeed take home the gold.
But we have to get our sports back. We can't wait to see what's next. Never give up, never lose faith, never ever quit. Just keep forging ahead. You give everything you've got. Victory is always within reach.
Hey everyone, I am Dana White, the president of the UFC. Many of you know who I am, what I do, and that I am friends with the president. I spoke at this convention 4 years ago, and I'm back because I believe we need President Trump's leadership now more than ever. Before the pandemic, President Trump built the greatest economy in our nation's history and created opportunities for all Americans like no one before him. Financial markets hit all-time highs, unemployment was at an all-time low, and we weren't facing the lawless destruction that now is occurring in a few of our great cities. It blows my mind how quickly some of the leadership in this country has forgotten the critical role first responders play in our society. Police departments and other law enforcement, even some fire departments, have faced opposition from many in this country. But they are always the people who are asked to step up when things are at their worst and put themselves at risk. That has certainly been the case during this ongoing pandemic. Come on, America, defunding these vital positions is not the answer. The first responders have always taken care of us, and now, more than ever, we need to take care of them. Now, let's talk about COVID, and let's be very honest about it. No one person and no one place could have anticipated the challenges that COVID would bring. But President Trump has faced all these obstacles head on. He immediately put protective measures in place, and he reached out to the best and the brightest leading American businesses across all industries to discuss what he and his administration could do to get the economy back up and running safely. Let me give you more detail. In early April, President Trump organized a task force of business leaders across the country, and I was fortunate enough to serve on that task force. Firsthand, I had the opportunity to witness how hardworking and determined President Trump was to solve unprecedented problems our country was facing. I personally observed his ability to listen and understand the issues impacting Americans of all backgrounds. It was clear his highest priority was always the health and safety of everyone in our country. Not just Republicans, not just supporters, but every single American. President Trump recognized that one of the small ways to instill a sense of normalcy in people's lives was to bring back entertainment options. The president went above and beyond to help all sports leagues involved figure out a way to overcome the challenges of staging live professional sporting events in the middle of a pandemic. And you know what? We did it. The UFC was the first to do it, and we are continuing to do it. Now, other sports have joined us, and some of the lessons learned are being used to help reopen other types of businesses and schools. Make no mistake about it, we still have a long way to go, and that is why we need a leader with President Trump's unique attributes at this critical time. I have said it before, and I will say it again. He is one of the most loyal human beings I have ever met. The man has unstoppable energy. No one, and I mean no one, is going to outwork this guy. But most importantly, he truly loves and believes in our country. He believes in the people of this country. America is a place everyone wants a solid job. They want to take care of their family. They want to support the community, assist the less fortunate, and enjoy the freedom this country has provided to all of us. While we have certainly experienced a ton of negativity in 2020, President Trump's mindset is to work tirelessly to find solutions to problems and help restore America. He did it once, and I'm telling you right now, he will do it again. And remember, President Trump may be the only president in modern times who has actually done everything he said he would do during his campaign. There's this quote that I love from Ronald Reagan, where he said, "There isn't any problem we can't solve if government will give us the facts, tell us what needs to be done, then get out of the way and let us have at it." And what that means to me is, as Americans, we work hard to overcome adversity, and we face the tough times head on, irrespective of your gender, race, religion, or sexual orientation. What unites us as a nation is freedom, equality, and opportunity. That's what it means to be an American. Ladies and gentlemen, let's re-elect President Trump. Let's figure out what the problems are and continue to find solutions to those problems. Then let's get to work. I'd like to close with this. While it's critically important to re-elect President Trump, this pandemic has also taught us to be very, very careful who you select as your next governor, senator, congressperson, and mayor. It is so important to vote.
Hallelujah.
And don't think that your vote doesn't matter, because to be honest with you, it has never mattered more than it does right now. Thank you, and have a great evening, America.
That may be one of the best speeches I've seen all week. And boy, was that intense. I wanted him to finish by saying, "Now vote for Trump or I will kick your ass." Yes,
well,
you.
That's
I'm
right. I thought he was going to hurt
us.
Yeah, I did think we were going to get hurt. But listen, that, where's that been all week? That needs to be said to Pennsylvanians. I have been begging the RNC and the Trump campaign, please come to Pennsylvania and remind Pennsylvanians who's doing this to them. Who's locking them down? Who's cheering schools being closed and churches being closed and businesses at 25%? Who's doing that? Democrat governors. Governors matter. Commissioners matter. School board members matter. That has to be said. It's not just about President Trump. It's not even just about members of Congress. It's about local elections. They matter more than ever. And if you're running for dog catcher right now, COVID matters, and we're seeing how even the local little fiefdoms will manipulate their power to keep you locked in your home or out of your church. Amen. I didn't think I'd hear it from the ultimate fighting guy, but thank God we did.
Again, Chris Stigall, I hate to fact check you. I don't think we actually elect dog catcher anymore. I think that's I'll have to check with
cat catcher
Glenn Kessler there at Washington Post. Once again, just to reset here, you're watching the fourth evening of the Republican National Convention, live streaming here at Town Hall across all of our social media platforms at townhall.com. I'm Larry O'Connor, joined by Chris Stigall, morning show host at AM 990 The Answer in Philadelphia on our Salem Radio.
I was flailing.
He's also, by the way, author of the great book, Uprising, Who the Hell Said You Can't Ditch and Switch?
That's right.
It's the awakening of Diamond and Silk. I know it looks like Diamond and Silk wrote this, but this is a Chris Stigall original.
You know it.
I love them. I love those ladies.
I do too.
You're right. You are correct, Chris. That down ticket races are very important. What did I want to ask you before I decided to be an idiot with you? Well,
just the importance of down ticket races. I can't say enough. Democrat governors matter. Democrat governors matter. They matter a lot.
That's right.
We need to talk about them.
That's what I wanted to say. Because to be fair, in a regular convention, where we would have a real convention, you do see a lot of that stuff, right? You do see a lot of this is the guy running for governor of that state. This is the guy running for secretary of state at this state, and you say, and they're doing away with that. This is very much, it is about the party, but it's about the party from a Washington, D.C. federal government perspective. And I wonder, I wonder if that's wise.
I don't know that it's wise. It's odd. There seems to be, I think I told you last night, I'm not sure, there's a local Republican or a Pennsylvania state senator, Doug Mastriano, who's become quite popular with the Trump campaign in Pennsylvania. He's a stud, a real rising conservative star. And he told me on the show a couple of days ago, his concern is that that connection is not being made, and he thinks it's very important. Our Democrat governor, and again, I'm only sorry to sound so Pennsylvania myopic, but Pennsylvania matters. I think we all get that.
No, that's why you're here.
Terrible. Yeah. I mean, Pennsylvanians are hurting terribly. Our schools are shuttered. Our kids can't play sports. And my 12-year-old daughter, she just turned 12 yesterday. My sweet little Anna, all she wants to do is go to school. And I have literally sat with her through tears because she's so emotionally distraught that she can't go back to school. These are things parents are dealing with. My wife's trying to figure out how now to teach 3 kids at the house full time and take on a few more because her friends need help, because they've cried to her, how am I going to do a job and teach my kids? This is happening to people's lives. Lives are being upended here, and Democrat governors are responsible for it. I want the Trump team to talk about that.
Yep. And it's hard when you look at the real science and you look at the data and you get, I mean, I'm sure you have all the experts and doctors on that I have on, and there's no explanation for it. The only explanation is politics. That people are being hurt. Children are being hurt. Their futures and their education are being undermined for politics. It's despicable. Oh, thank God. I was going to wear those glasses tonight. That would have. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Kurt looks fantastic tonight. Who is that?
I wanted to bring up this our guy Dana White, president of Ultimate Fighting Championship. There may have been some eye rolls going on. What's the UFC guy doing there? And I don't know about you. Whenever I do a segment on my shows, or if I write a column that focuses on sports, my VIP column at Town Hall today was about the NBA. I always get the comments. I always get called, who cares about sports? They're all a bunch of rich crybabies. It's spoiled. No one cares about sports. I haven't watched sports in years. The president understands how important sports are in America. The president understands. If you don't think sports and sports figures and the culture of professional athletics is not important to this country, you got to explain why the Super Bowl is always the #1 watched television program of the year. I mean, that it's critically important to talk about that cultural aspect of our lives, isn't it? And I'm glad the president raised it.
there's a segment of conservatism out there that likes to pretend if they don't care about it, it doesn't matter. And I really wish they'd knock that off. I respect that you don't care about Hollywood or comedy or sports. I'm that's fine. You don't have to. But to pretend like other people don't pay attention to it, I've never understood that line of thinking.
You know what I always like to try to come back with is, as Jesus said, "I'm in this world, but not of this world." So yes, my sights are set on higher aspirations, and I have a higher calling, but I am still living in this world. We are in this world. We must participate in this world.
And to be perfectly blunt, some of the best times of my life as a kid with my dad, as the boys that I'm raising now with my dad as their grandfather, we collectively, some of our greatest times as a family have been around a football game on a Sunday. That matters to me. Yeah. It still matters to me. I still care about it. And I don't want to see my sports corrupted because that's great unifying time. It's great togetherness time, and it's being destroyed. So I still care about it.
I do. That's very good. Very good. But I want to also let you know that Kurt Schlichter will be wrapping things up with us this evening with the president's speech. By the way, I just saw a picture of what the White House looks like right now. People might be envisioning
what
we saw.
Did he paint it
with the first? Well, no, he did not. He kept it white for now. People might be envisioning the scene in the Rose Garden with the First Lady, Melania Trump. It is not. He is going to be speaking from the outside the portico of the South Lawn, where Marine One usually lands. That giant expanse of grass, which is completely full of chairs with a giant audience, with bunting. I mean, he is using the White House. There's no doubt about it. He is using the setting of the White House as the set for this speech, without a doubt. And it is, it's an incredible scene there. It looks like an inauguration party. Do you have any reservations about that?
What choice have we? I mean, there's no rule. You know, there's no rule. Somebody did appropriately point out that FDR's done it before. It's not unprecedented. Yeah. Now, there wasn't television in FDR's day. He did it with the radio. But what's the rule? Look, if you jackasses want to keep us locked away in our homes, that's his house. Sorry.
That's right. He's just going out to his backyard. What?
I'm here on my porch. He's at his house. We all have our house.
Well, and so now there is also another side of that coin. The White House is a public building in a very public setting, even though the perimeter of the fence and barrier was moved out quite a bit after 9/11. The public can still see. You can get there to the ellipse, and there is a very large crowd of protesters gathering outside of the fence, outside the ellipse, right off the National Mall.
Right?
Well, they're going to try to make tonight, maybe. They have said they're going to try to make noise to disrupt the speech and to be heard in the background. Certainly, the media will cover that part of it, and they will make that part of the story tonight as well. Which, you know, you don't see that usually at a political convention.
Yeah, you know what he'll do? He'll fly Marine One right over the protesters and just let it hover the entirety of the speech.
Just buzz them like Maverick in Top Gun.
Well, it's that, you know, whenever he goes out to do the press spray before he gets on Marine One and you can barely hear him, that's what he'll do.
Yeah.
He'll just have the helicopter just around it's just throughout the entirety of the speech.
What? Yes. And the hair will be sprayed like, you know. By the way, where there are protesters, where there are mobs, where are there potential riots, where there are crazy leftists breaking the law, you can count on our very own intrepid reporter, Julio Rosas, who has been giving incredible reports from Portland, from Seattle, from Minneapolis, from DC, from wherever these crazy leftists are. And you can count on the fact that, yes, Julio Rosas from townhall.com is right in the thick of it tonight. So keep it at Town Hall well into the evening and watch our Twitter feed, because if any mayhem happens, Julio will have live video of it and hopefully he is keeping himself safe. But he's a Marine, so he should be okay. I should think. Oh, here is. Let's go straight to this video, please. This is the widow of Captain David Dorn.
David met him when Lee was just a kid, after members of his family were attacked and murdered. Dave took a special interest in the boy. They bonded, and their friendship grew and remained strong throughout the years. Lee eventually opened a pawn shop. He trusted Dave implicitly and asked Dave to help with security. David readily agreed. Whenever the shop's alarm would go off, the alarm company called Dave. He would investigate. If he got a call after I went to bed, he would wake me up and tell me he was going to Lee's, just to make sure everything was all right. Most of the time they were false alarms, triggered by a storm or animals. But I never rested easily until I heard Dave's key turn in the door, knowing he was home safe. The alarm that went off the morning of June 2nd was for real. It was a violent night in St. Louis. 4 officers were shot. Others were hit with rocks and fireworks. At least 5 businesses were damaged, looted, or set on fire. As the Officer Wellness Coordinator and CIT Coordinator with the police department, I was keenly aware of the rioting and spent the evening getting ready to mobilize support for officers who were impacted. After I'd gone to bed, David received a call from Lee's alarm company. The front door of the pawn shop had been breached. This time he didn't wake me up to tell me. He probably knew I would have tried to stop him or insist on going with him. As I slept, looters were ransacking the shop. They shot and killed David in cold blood, and then live streamed his execution and his last moments on earth. David's grandson was watching the video on Facebook in real time, not realizing he was watching his own grandfather dying on the sidewalk. I learned of all this around 4 a.m. when our doorbell rang. The chief of police was standing outside. I wondered why Dave had not answered the door. It wasn't uncommon for him to be up watching TV at this time. I called out to him several times. There was no reply. He just wasn't there. I let in the chief, and fighting back tears, he uttered the words every officer's spouse dreads. I relive that horror in my mind every single day. My hope is that having you relive it with me now will help shake this country from this nightmare we are witnessing in our cities and bring about positive, peaceful change. How do we get to this point where so many young people are callous and indifferent towards human life? This isn't a video game where you can commit mayhem and then just hit reset and bring all the characters back to life. David is never coming back to me. He was murdered by people who didn't know and just didn't care. He would have done anything to help them. Violence and destruction are not legitimate forms of protest. They do not safeguard Black lives. They only destroy them. President Trump understands this, has offered federal help to restore order in our communities. In a time when police departments are short on resources and manpower, we need that help. We should accept that help. We must heal before we can affect change, but we cannot heal amid devastation and chaos. President Trump knows we need more Davids in our communities, not fewer. We need to come together in peace and remember that every life is precious.
Good evening. I'm Ben Carson, a retired neurosurgeon and a public servant. Before I begin, I'd like to say that our hearts go out to the Blake family and the other families who've been impacted by the tragic events in Kenosha. As Jacob's mother has urged the country, let's use our hearts, our love, and our intelligence to work together to show the rest of the world how humans are supposed to treat each other. America is great when we behave greatly. In order to succeed in change, we must first come together in love of our fellow citizens. History reminds us that necessary change comes through hope and love, not senseless and destructive violence. Abraham Lincoln once said to an America divided that, quote, "Your purpose then, plainly stated, is that you will destroy the government unless you be allowed to construe and enforce the Constitution as you please on all points in dispute between you and us. You will rule or ruin in all events," unquote. These words of warning are relevant today. We have a choice. Do we want big government that controls our lives from cradle to grave? Or do we believe in the power and wisdom of the people and their ability to self-govern with help from a limited federal government? Our president, Donald J. Trump, believes in the people. He is one of us. He makes promises and he keeps them. He is transparent, and we certainly know what he's thinking. He does not submit to political correctness or to its enforcers, the media. He is real. Right now, we need real. We need courage. We can't cower in the corner and hope that no one calls us a name, believing that will keep us safe. That is not courage, and that will not lead us to a good and just place. We must remember all those who sacrificed everything in order to give us freedom, and we must be willing to do the same for those who come after us. President Trump does not dabble in identity politics. He wants everyone to succeed and believes in the adage, "A rising tide lifts all boats." Many on the other side love to incite division by claiming that President Trump is a racist. They could not be more wrong. Years ago, Jesse Jackson gave Donald Trump an award for the economic opportunities he created for black people. In Palm Beach, Florida, Donald Trump led the crusade to allow blacks and Jews into private clubs and resorts. One of the first things he did as president was bring the Office of Historically Black Colleges and Universities into the White House so that it could get proper attention and financial support. Before the pandemic, African American unemployment was at an all-time low. President Trump accomplished prison reform. He created incentives to encourage investors to become involved with economically deprived areas of America. He strongly supports school choice, fully recognizing that no matter what circumstances a person is born into, they can achieve success with a good education. It was true for me. When my mother forced me to read books about doctors, entrepreneurs, inventors, and scientists, I began to recognize that the person who has the most to do with what happens to you in life is you. My mother always told me, "Ben, you can do anything, but I will never allow you to become a victim." It was then that I stopped listening to the people who were trying to convince me that I was a victim and that others were responsible for my victimhood. What is racist is the fact that African Americans have the highest abortion rate. President Trump is the most pro-life president in the country's history. He will continue to fight for those who cannot yet speak. The vision of a shining city up on a hill came from Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. America is that shiny city. We are the beacon of hope for the world. At this moment in time, President Donald Trump is the man with the courage, the vision, and the ability to keep it shining brightly.
Okay, let's I'm glad we had Secretary Carson to
right
allow us to recover from Ann Dorn's remarks, because that was one of the most heart-wrenching things I've ever heard on live television, Chris, the detailing of the murder of her husband.
Yeah, we're paid to flap our gums a lot. I don't have anything to add. I just don't. I think we often might throw around the "bring you to tears" phrase. That one did, and I just don't. I don't know. I don't know how a human being can not connect with that.
Yeah, and of course, it wasn't explicit in the video, but you could see the picture of her late husband in uniform over her shoulder, the portrait. Her husband was black. She was white.
And you know what's sick? What's amazing, Larry, is I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just saw, I was literally on social media tweeting about that, and I saw some, I don't know, journalist or somebody say, hey, you should know that David Dorn's politics, he certainly was no Trump supporter. As though that matters to Anne-Marie Dorn, or, there was somebody kind of defiantly fact-checking that Anne-Marie Dorn was stepping out on her own, endorsing Donald Trump, that David Dorn was no Trump backer. I mean, what is wrong with people?
So number one, she's his widow, so maybe she has some level of authority on this topic. Number two, I don't know, she may have voted for Hillary, but maybe the murder in cold blood of her husband may have had her reset her perspective on things. And number three, they can go F themselves. My God, I pity these people that this is how they react to something like that. But I guess what I wanted to say was, here she is, a white woman. Her husband is a black man who was the captain of the police department of a major city in America. They were married for years, had children, were in love. They represent what I thought we were striving for in this country with regard to race relations, with regard to living out Martin Luther King's dream, that we are human beings, not the sum total of the color of our skin. They lived that every day, and now he is dead in cold blood in the name of Black Lives Matter. I mean, it couldn't be more powerful. I'm
yeah, and the only thing people can say posthumously about him is that he was a registered Democrat. I mean, that's what the other side has to offer in terms of commentary. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for a dead man, but I suspect he'd probably reassess things were he still with us today.
She said nothing about politics or party. I mean, she did say that something positive about President Trump in terms of his desire to bring order back to the streets of our cities, and I can understand her agreeing with that policy. It was less about politics as it was about peace in our time.
Humanity. She said something very important about the youth culture. And it's critical. The youth in this country, the callousness, just the ice in the veins, the inability to understand what human life means. It's not hitting reset on a video game. That's a social commentary as much as it's anything.
Yep. She also said about the riots, and I'm reading, the quote was grabbed by Courtney O'Brien from townhall.com, part of the live blog here, our managing news editor. They do not save Black lives, they only destroy them. And to hear those words while the image of her late husband was right behind her over her shoulder was more powerful than anything a committee head in the House of Representatives might bring to the table tonight. That's fantastic. Meanwhile, Chris, if I can let you know, we have a scene developing outside of the White House. I had mentioned the president is going to be speaking from the South Lawn, which is where Marine One lands and where he waves and goes, and it's right. It's the side that is toward the Washington Monument and the Mall. The other side of the White House, what's often seen as sort of the front door, where the press enters, where the cars drive up. If you see the president standing in the doorway accepting a state visitor, that's where Lafayette Square is, which has recently been renamed Black Lives Matter Plaza, as Mayor Bowser has painted that. Oh, we've got Rudy Giuliani. All right, I'll finish what's going on at the White House in a moment. Let's go to Mayor Giuliani. Excuse me.
Now today, my city is in shock. Murders, shootings, and violent crime are increasing at percentages unheard of in the past. We're seeing the return of rioting and looting. During riots, this Democrat mayor, like others, has often prevented the police from making arrests. And even when arrests are made, liberal, progressive DAs release the rioters so as not to disrupt the rioting. New Yorkers wonder, how did we get overwhelmed by crime so quickly and decline so fast? Don't let Democrats do to America what they have done to New York. Again, the Democrats are urging you to vote for an obviously defective candidate. Biden has changed his principles so often, he no longer has any principles. He's a Trojan horse with Bernie, AOC, Pelosi, Black Lives Matter, and his party's entire left wing, just waiting to execute their pro-criminal, anti-police socialist policies. The whole unprecedented wave of lawlessness began with a truly just cause: the unforgivable police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Peaceful protests began all over the land. The condemnation of the killing was universal, from President Trump to Democrat leaders. It seemed, for a few brief shining moments, Democrat and Republican leaders would come together with a unified proposal to reduce police misconduct. This possibility was very dangerous to the left. They had a president to beat and a country to destroy. And although an agreement on action against police brutality would be very valuable for the country, it would also make President Trump appear to be an effective leader. They could have none of that. So Black Lives Matter and Antifa sprang into action, and in a flash, they hijacked the peaceful protests into vicious, brutal riots. Soon, protests turned into riots in many other American cities, almost all Democrat. Businesses were burned and crushed, people beaten, shot and killed, police officers routinely assaulted, badly beaten, and occasionally murdered, and the police handcuffed by progressive Democrat mayors from doing anything but observe the crimes and absorb the blows. But the worst of it was the slaughter of innocent young people with their whole lives ahead of them. The murder of 4-year-old Legrand Talfaro in Kansas City shocked the nation, but not Black Lives Matter or their many Democrat supporters. 17-year-old basketball star Brandon Hendricks was killed in the Bronx just days after graduating high school and on his way to St. John's to play basketball. He passed with only a brief mention. 1-year-old Davil Gardner Jr. was shot and killed in a stroller at a cookout in Brooklyn, and it caused no outrage. For President Trump and for us Republicans, all Black lives matter, and the lives of Legrand and Brandon and Davil matter to us. All lives matter to us. These continuous riots in Democratic cities gives you a good view of the future under Biden. All 5 of the top cities for homicides, like the top cities for rioting and looting, are governed by progressive Democrats. Using the progressive Democrat approach to crime, which is to do nothing, substantive to reduce it, to release prisoners, as many and as soon as possible, and to go to war with the police, the only group with the capability to protect your citizens. It is clear that a vote for Biden and the Democrats creates the risk that you will bring this lawlessness to your city, to your town, to your suburb. There is no question that this awesome job of restoring safety for our people cannot be done from your basement, Joe. There's also no question that President Trump will fight with all his strength to preserve the American system of government and our way of life. In critical times in our history, America has always been blessed with the right person to handle the crisis. Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, Reagan were perfect for the challenges they faced and brought our nation through gloriously. President Trump, with his boundless love of our country and all our people, his disciplined work ethic, his exceptional ability to inspire, and his deep understanding of our system of government and the strength of American values is the man we can trust to preserve and even improve our way of life. Mr. President, make our nation safe again.
Wow. Strong and emotional coming from the former mayor of New York City. And Chris, as we predicted and hoped, it was all about crime in his city and in other cities across the country. Final remarks here, as you've been given, you've gone into overtime, Chris, and you get nothing extra for it. But send us off here before we move on for the rest of the evening.
It's the right tone. Tonight's the night to remind everybody that as cities burn, the choice has never been more clear. The party that is condemning it, the party that wants to restore law and order and peace. And by the way, that blacks are indiscriminately killed in all this chaos. Rudy hit on that well. I mean, they're doing their level best to make the pitch. They don't want to, Mike Pence said it last night. We're not going to stand for lawlessness. We will uphold law and order if you elect us. We will restore the rule of law. They can't be more clear. I mean, the choice can't be more stark. Now you just pucker and wait for November 3rd, I guess.
Well said, Chris Stigall. We'll look forward to your analysis tomorrow morning on AM 990 The Answer in Philadelphia, as always. And for those of you who are enjoying our conversation, every Thursday night, Chris Stigall, Kurt Schlichter, and I have our VIP Gold chat that is available to VIP Gold members at Townhall, and it's unedited, uncensored, unplugged, oftentimes unpantsed. So make sure you tune in for that. In the meantime, in fact, for all I know, well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Ed Morrissey from Hot Air will be joining us in a second. Let's hear Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas.
Good night.
While I stand alone. Stands alone. That was the motto of my old Army unit, the 506th Infantry, the original band of brothers. From the Normandy beaches to the Iraqi desert, we fought alongside each other, but we were always prepared to stand alone. And so it is with our nation. We lead the free world, but we'll stand alone if we must to defend America. Donald Trump understands this. He puts America first. That's why America is safer now than 4 years ago. But Joe Biden would return us to a weak and dangerous past. Barack Obama's own Secretary of Defense said Joe Biden has been wrong on nearly every major national security decision over the past 4 decades. So let's compare the records of Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Joe Biden slashed defense spending again and again. President Trump rebuilt our military and added the Space Force. Joe Biden let ISIS terrorists rampage across the Middle East. President Trump eliminated ISIS's leader and destroyed its caliphate. Joe Biden opposed the mission to kill Osama bin Laden. President Trump avenged the murder of hundreds of Americans by killing Iran's terrorist mastermind, Qasem Soleimani. Joe Biden sent pallets of cash to the Ayatollahs. President Trump.
All right, Senator Tom Cotton, who has very strong foreign policy and national security credentials in the United States Senate, and is on many people's lists for a potential run for the presidency in 2024, making the case against Joe Biden, kind of echoing Ed Morrissey, that devastating line from former Secretary of Defense Gates that Joe Biden's been on the wrong side of every major foreign policy issue for his entire career. Ed, thanks for joining us. Good to see you tonight.
Hey, great to be back with you. And you know, this is how I spent my summer vacation. I get to talk to Larry O'Connor 2 nights in a row. This is great.
You lucky bastard. So Ann Dorn, my goodness. Ann Dorn, the widow of the slain police captain in St. Louis. When I saw that her name was added to the list, I had not seen this until this evening, that she was going to be speaking. I was blown away by that, and then times 10 with those remarks, Ed. What a powerful human moment.
Well, I think that this is not subtle tonight. It's law and order night. And in fact, if anything, Tom Cotton is sort of a sidebar. Not that the issues that he is discussing aren't important, they are, but they don't have anywhere near the emotional resonance. And I talked yesterday about one of the key questions in this election is both parties are basically betting on whether America is essentially good or not. Democrats are betting that Americans say no, while Republicans are betting that Americans will say yes. There's another question tonight that's related to it, but it's a little different. And that is this: what is the crisis facing Americans at the moment? COVID works for both parties, but what is the essential crisis for both parties? The essential crisis, Democrats argue, is Donald Trump himself. Donald Trump, and clearly the RNC here, is arguing that the essential crisis is on the streets of American cities that are in flames, where police are being pushed out of the way, and crime is skyrocketing. And we're still dealing with this. We had a riot last night. While we were talking last night, Larry, we had another riot in Minneapolis, and several more businesses were burnt out, including one that I had frequented, and I know people who work there in downtown Minneapolis. And I mean, that is
and it was based on a lie. It was based on a lie that was spread by a video on the internet. A young man tragically killed himself. Police responded and were actually trying to resuscitate him, but other people surrounded the police officers and said, "You shot him, you killed him," and then there's a riot. I mean, what do we do with that?
This is mob rule. That's the essential crisis that Republicans are selling tonight. And I got to tell you, I think that that's a lot bigger essential crisis for people who are actually living anywhere near these cities than Donald Trump is. I mean, I think that the fact that Democrats didn't even bother talking about this during their convention is a big, huge red flag for most people.
There's also another part of this, I think, Ed, that you can speak to, and that is, and Selena Zito at the Examiner, a great political observer, wrote about this earlier today as well. There's kind of an assumption in America, I think, and it's wrong, and it's probably even a little bigoted is too strong a word. Let's say prejudiced or whatever word you want to throw in.
Biased.
Biased. There is an assumption in America. There you go. That this sort of thing maybe happens in some of the big cities, and it happens in Portland and Seattle because they're crazy over in Portland and Seattle and those things. But when it's Kenosha, when it's in the suburbs, when we're seeing the riots in the suburbs, then, and we keep hearing about how important the suburbs are to this vote, then people start to say, wait a minute, it's one thing to be in downtown Baltimore, it's another thing to be in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And that's when it becomes topic number one for people. And you're sort of hearing some of the speeches, including Rudy Giuliani's speech tonight, suggest that, sort of lay that groundwork.
Yeah, in fact, I was sending notes to the hosts here, or to you and to our producer during Rudy's speech. When he mentioned suburbs, I typed in "suburbs drink." I mean, this is the message that they're pushing across, right? I mean, if you're playing a drinking game, if you got suburbs on your card, make sure you have somebody who can drive you home tonight, folks. That's all I'm saying is that, if you have suburbs on your game card, have a designated driver on hand, because you're going to hear this an awful lot tonight. And you already have heard it an awful lot tonight.
And that may be, in a cynical, market-tested, focus group strategy, but the actual events of the news of the day supports it. It actually, it validates that political strategy.
Yeah, I think that when they were starting to get into the suburb question, it was really revolving around policy, right? It was the affordable further fair housing
and urban development. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. That the Obama administration had in place, and that was actually in place for the first 3 years of the Trump administration. They canceled it this year. Finally, they removed it this year, and they were tooling up for a fight over the suburbs. But it's really policy based. This is not policy based. This is really existential based, and it's going to hit people a lot harder than AFFH ever was going to. And again, I think that Democrats who didn't get ahead of this, and they haven't gotten ahead of this, are really going to pay a price for that. Because it looks like if they're not encouraging it, they're tacitly not discouraging it, right? They're not criticizing. They're saying, well, it's mostly peaceful. It's like the media. Well, these are mostly peaceful protests. It's like being a little bit pregnant. What does mostly peaceful mean? I guess you could say Europe was mostly peaceful during World War II, except for the places where everybody was dying. It's an absurd construct. I don't even know who came up with that construct. You had one, I think it was a couple nights ago, and this is in Kenosha, not in Minneapolis. And I believe it was on CNN, but I could be wrong about that, where they had a reporter with flames behind him. This is the second time this has happened this summer, saying that, well, it was mostly peaceful. Ali Velshi and MSNBC did this in Minneapolis at the end of May. You had fires erupting behind him, and he was reporting, well, the protests here are mostly peaceful. It's Baghdad Bob time.
It's absurd.
People aren't buying that.
It is absurd, and people see through it. Absolutely. It's like, I know this is extreme, but it's like saying, President Kennedy's motorcade in Dallas that day was mostly uneventful. Okay, but there was one pretty big event. Yeah,
it was mostly successful. They only failed to get one guy to the end. Or two guys, actually. They only failed to get two guys to the end. Unfortunately, it was the governor and the president. This is in the don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining thing. People are too close to what's going on here. They see what's going on, and they're not going to buy this idea that this is mostly peaceful and these are actually, positive protests. You got people getting burned out. These cities are going to take decades to recover from this. Decades.
Yeah. Speaking of the unrest in the cities, we have something playing out right now in Washington, D.C. Now, the president is going to be giving his remarks in the South Lawn, the very big, wide expanse where the Marine One lands, and it's got the big portico. It's where they do the Easter egg roll, all of that stuff. On the other side of the White House, the front door, if you will, that's where Lafayette Square is. That's now been named Black Lives Matter Plaza. It's where St. John's Church is, where the president famously, defiantly walked out and held up a Bible. We have a crowd gathering there. Our own Julio Rosas from Town Hall is there bringing us vivid video from it. I got to give you a language warning here on the video, because this is straight from the streets of Washington, D.C., but I want everyone to see what's playing out right now as we speak in D.C. an hour before, well, really about 30 minutes before the president is due to give his speech. Take a look at this.
Yep.
Burn it down! We burn it down! We don't get it! Burn it down! We don't get it! Burn it down!
that's just a little taste of it. Burn it down. In the background, you saw that is St. John's Episcopal Church, the president's church, and they're screaming, burn it down, burn it down. So while the president will have the backdrop of the White House for his speech, Ed, that will also be going on. And of course, that will be part of the story. How do you think that plays out?
Well, I think that the media is going to play it up, right? I think you're going to see a lot of coverage of that. There's going to probably, if you're not watching C-SPAN, which is probably where you should be watching this. If you're not watching it here, you should probably be watching it on C-SPAN. You're probably going to see all the other major networks cut back and forth between the protests and Donald Trump's speech, and mention that it's peaceful. It's peaceful out there, which is sort of like the soft bigotry of low expectations. It's supposed to be peaceful. If it's not peaceful, it's not lawful. If it's not lawful, it's a riot.
That's the bare minimum we should expect. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's I guess you're playing the expectations game. Honestly though, I do give them high marks because at least in that little brief expanse of time, nobody did the hey, hey, ho, ho chant, which has been around for the last 70 years.
Well, well, there was some other things chanted that we decided not to share with you that go well beyond the hey, hey, ho, ho. It's but it's interesting because the media will dwell on it, and I think they will show those images, and they will say, you see the president is a divisive figure, and there's unrest in the streets. I think for the voters that matter, when they see that coverage, they're going to think, "Oh my gosh, this is chaos," and I don't think Trump gets the blame. But again, maybe I'm a homer on this. I just don't see it playing out that way.
Well, because it's not really, these protests aren't even supposed to be about Trump, right? They're supposed to be about local policing. This is not a federal issue. This is a city by city issue. And in some cases, I guess you could even say maybe a state issue. But primarily, this is a city by city issue. So Donald Trump really doesn't have a lot to do with policing. So I don't think that the idea that this is somehow divisive, it has nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with police departments. Now, Donald Trump is heavily behind the police departments. He's obviously, this whole evening is them going all in with the police departments here. But it's not a Trump issue. This wasn't a Trump issue until the riots started. And Giuliani mentioned this too, is that Trump said when George Floyd was killed that he thought that there was something wrong with this and it should be investigated, which is the proper response. I think that was pretty reasonable considering what was on the tape. I don't think that Donald Trump gets the blame for the nuts in the streets. I think that is part of Donald Trump's argument. They're making Donald Trump's argument for him.
Yeah, they are. Exactly. Ed, I'm going to call an audible here, and I hope you're okay with it. We've got Kurt Schlichter on with us, and I have a quick, I need to take a quick break for about 5 minutes. And I'm wondering if between Alice Johnson, live on stage at the convention, and Ed Morrissey at Hot Air, and Kurt Schlichter from Townhall, you guys can take the baton for a few, and I will be back in just a few moments.
You bet. Go ahead. I'll take over for you, Larry.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Thank you, Ed. And Micah, hopefully you can make that happen and swap it out. There we go. All right.
All right. Larry O'Connor stepping away for just a moment. Larry's gold ricking. I'm bringing on a hardworking man, Kurt Schlichter from townhall.com, senior columnist, and of course, a fantastic Salem radio guest host, often filling in for Hugh Hewitt on the morning show. Kurt, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Look, I've been listening to you as I've been waiting to come on with Larry for 2 days now, and I got to ask you, you think Trump's ahead?
I think he is where it matters.
I mean, that's the basic thing. No one cares about anything else. You think he's ahead right now? Yeah,
where it matters. And I think the reason why he's ahead is because of the people who are in the street who are making this argument for him. Well, now that doesn't mean he's going to stay ahead. There's still a lot left to go here, but yeah, I think that this has been a pretty good convention, and I think
I did notice some very interesting. I was watching Fox, and they've obviously learned from the first night when everyone said, "Hey, shut up and show it." So there's been very little commentary, but they did have one ad, and it was a Joe Biden ad. And that Biden ad would have slipped comfortably into this convention. It was aspirational. It was I'm with you. It was we're all in this together. No stuff about you better get your pronouns right. America is built on slavery. Blah blah. None of that garbage. It was. This is telling me, and the fact that Joe now says he's going to Wisconsin, which I'll believe when I see it, this tells me they are scared. They are scared to the core of their soul.
Yeah, I think that they should be. Again, I think that what you're looking at here is the burning of the cities is going to change it's going to change the temperature in the suburbs. It has to change the temperature in the suburbs. People in the suburbs have got to be absolutely aghast at what they are seeing there. And especially, in Kenosha, where it started spilling out into the suburbs anyway. Portland, the same thing. It doesn't matter much in Oregon because it's Oregon, but in Wisconsin, it matters.
Matter. I think, and I wrote my column about today, the 5 reasons Biden's going to get crushed. And I did as kind of a pre-mortem as opposed to a post-mortem. I kind of took the arguments of all the smart blue checks on November 4th when they finally sober up and down a handful of Advil and some free-range coffee. And they say, oh, of course Trump won. Duh. Duh. Anybody would have known that. We got a senile old weirdo lives in a basement who's running on a platform of fewer cops, more criminals, higher taxes, and suck up to the Chinese. You look at that and you think, well, am I missing something here? Is there a subtle nuance where these become great ideas and smart plays? And there's not.
No. And Kurt, you're absolutely right. Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist from townhall.com. I'm going to introduce Larry O'Connor back to the show, WMAL and KABC talk show host and another senior columnist at townhall.com. I'm going to go ahead and step away. Larry's back. And Larry and Kurt, you're going to take it from here. Thanks for having me on tonight, guys.
Oh, Ed, thank you.
Bye,
It's
Ed.
always great to hear. It's great to hear from you, Ed. And look at that smooth transition as well. Again, Ed Morrissey is on vacation, a long-deserved vacation over the last 2 weeks, and he has been nice enough to join us for a bit yesterday and today here for the Republican convention. So thank you to the always classy Ed Morrissey. And we go from the classy Ed Morrissey to, God knows what, with Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist, townhall.com.
Yeah, we really went downhill with me.
Kurt Schlichter, of course, author of Uprising.
I'm the one on the
Who the
left.
hell said
it's Diamond. It's Diamond and Schlicht.
That's right. I have so many books here where I oh, here we go. This is Kurt Schlichter's book, of course, The 21 Biggest Lies About Donald Trump and You. And I heard you, Kurt. I heard you referring to today's column, and it's great. You gave us a bit of a preview last night, but you gave the 5 reasons why the president is going to win. I got to tell you, I think you hit the nail on the head with your column, as you usually do. And I think the needle is moving with this convention, and I am seeing, it's anecdotal, but I'm seeing a lot of people, moderate types, sort of almost like they used to be Trump skeptics on social media, saying not only are they 100% on board, but they're hearing from friends. I didn't vote last time, but I'm voting Trump this time.
I'm hearing that too. I'm seeing that, but I'm not seeing anything the other way. I'm not seeing anyone go, well, I watched these. I've watched 3 nights so far of this convention, and I don't want to have anything to do with the likes of Burgess Owens or Ron Coleman or any of these. The nun who was a colonel and a doctor. I don't want to be a part of that. Get me to people who don't know which bathroom to use. Those are the guys I want to, count me in.
Kurt, let's go straight to the White House now. The delightful product of Donald and Ivana Trump, the daughter of the president, Ivanka. Let's listen to what she has to say.
Support you every step of the way. And just like Americans always do, the nation will come together to help you rebuild your homes, businesses, and communities stronger and more resilient than ever before. Four years ago, I introduced to you a builder, an entrepreneur, an outsider, and the people's nominee for President of the United States. Tonight, I stand before you as the proud daughter of the people's president. He is our commander-in-chief, champion of the American worker, defender of common sense, and our voice for the forgotten men and women of this country. He is our president and my father, Donald J. Trump. This evening, I want to tell you about the leader I know and the moments I wish every American could see. I want to tell you the story of a president who is fighting for you from dawn to midnight, when the cameras have left, the microphones are off, and the decisions really count. When Jared and I moved with our 3 young children to Washington, we didn't exactly know what we were in for, but our kids loved it from the start. My son Joseph promptly built Grandpa a Lego replica of the White House. The president still displays it on the mantle in the Oval Office right over there so that he can show world leaders, just so they know he has the greatest grandchildren on earth. I agree. Over the last 4 years, we've learned a lot. I've seen in Washington it's easy for politicians to survive if they silence their convictions and skip the hard fights. I couldn't believe so many politicians actually prefer to complain about a problem rather than fix it. I was shocked to see people leave major challenges unsolved so they can blame the other side, campaign on the same issue in the next election. But Donald Trump did not come to Washington to win praise from the Beltway elites. Donald Trump came to Washington for one reason, and one reason alone: to make America great again. My father has strong convictions. He knows what he believes, and he says what he thinks. Whether you agree with him or not, you always know where he stands. I recognize that my dad's communication style is not to everyone's taste, and I know that his tweets can feel a bit unfiltered. But the results speak for themselves. He is so unapologetic about his beliefs that he has caused me and countless Americans to take a hard look at our own convictions and ask ourselves, what do we stand for? What kind of America do we want to leave for our children? I am more certain than ever before we want a future where our kids can believe in American greatness. We want a society where every child can live in a safe community and go to a great school of their choice. We want a culture where differences of opinion and debate are encouraged, not canceled, where law enforcement is respected, where our country's rich diversity is celebrated, and where people of all backgrounds, races, genders, and creeds have the chance to achieve their God-given potential. This is the future my father is working to build each and every day.
I think we have another candidate, Larry.
Building, after all, is what he's done his whole life. He has admired and befriended construction workers on countless job sites. But it has been a new and profound experience for him and for me to see these stoic machinists and steelworkers come to him with a tear in their eye and thank him for being the only person willing to go to the mat for them, for their jobs, for their families, and for their futures. To the hardworking men and women across America and here tonight, you are the reason my father fights with all of his heart and all of his might. You are the reason he ran for president in the first place, and you are the reason he is going to keep fighting for 4 more years.
This is good stuff, Larry.
She has great political instincts. She looks fantastic. She's a natural. I just don't like dynasties. I just don't like it.
I don't like dynasties
I've never met
either, and never met a dynasty I like. But, you know, she could be a senator.
I remember one evening in early February of 2018, we were in the Oval Office with my father's top economic advisors, and the president was pushing to keep the promise he made to renegotiate the bad trade deals that had gutted millions of middle-class jobs. Most of his advisors argued that the economy was so strong following our historic tax and regulatory cuts that it didn't make sense to risk rocking the boat. After the meeting, as I walked with my father back towards the residence, he said, "You know, the reason this has never been done before is because our leaders haven't had the guts. When the economy is good, they settle for good, and when things are bad, they don't have the will or ability, so they kick the can until it's someone else's problem." He was right. If my father didn't take on these fights, no one would. In the months that followed, President Trump refused to settle for a good deal. He wanted a great deal, and ultimately, that is exactly what we got. I remember each time he was updated on the progress of the new trade deal with Mexico and Canada, he would say, "Don't let down those dairy farmers I met in Wisconsin. I don't want them to like this deal. I want them to love it." Today, in the midst of this unprecedented global pandemic, it's more clear than ever that our president was absolutely correct to take on trade when he did and bring our jobs, our factories, and our life-saving medicines back to the USA. As our nation endures this grave trial, I pray for the families who are mourning the loss of a loved one, for those who are battling COVID-19, and for the first responders and the healthcare heroes who remain on the front line of this fight. The grief, sorrow, and anxiety during this time is felt by all. I've been with my father, and I've seen the pain in his eyes when he receives updates on the lives that have been stolen by this plague. I have witnessed him make some of the most difficult decisions of his life. I sat with him in the Oval Office as he stopped travel to Europe. I watched him take the strongest, most inclusive economy in a lifetime, the lowest unemployment in a half century, and the highest wage increase for working families in decades, and close it down to save American lives. It is why our president rapidly mobilized the full force of government and the private sector to produce ventilators within weeks, to build the most robust testing system in the world, and to develop safe and effective treatments, and very, very soon a vaccine. My father isn't deterred by defeatist thinkers. The word impossible, well, it only motivates him. Donald Trump rejects the cynical notion that this country's greatest achievements are behind us. He believes that nothing is beyond our reach and that the best is yet to come. I have seen all of my life how my dad believes in the potential of each individual. Earlier this evening, we were all inspired by the incredible testimony of Alice Johnson, a great-grandmother who was sentenced to life in prison for a first-time nonviolent drug offense. I was with my father when he decided to commute Alice's life sentence. Together, we watched Alice leave prison after nearly 22 years. As she ran into the arms of her family and they celebrated a joyful reunion, my father got very quiet. I could see the emotion on his face. After a long silence, he looked at me and said, "Imagine how many people there are just like Alice." From that point on, he became a voice for those who had been unfairly silenced in our prison system. President Trump rectified the disparities of the 1994 Biden crime bill that disproportionately hurt African Americans. Against all odds, he brought together Republicans and Democrats and passed the most significant criminal justice reform of our generation, and we're just getting started. My father did not campaign on this issue. He tackled this injustice because he has a deep compassion for those who have been treated unfairly. More than rhetoric and political prose, the ability to build consensus and achieve bipartisan success will help heal our country's racial inequities and bring us forward together. President Trump is advancing the American values of work and family. 4 years ago in Cleveland, I said President Trump would deliver for working women. Last year, over 70% of all new jobs were secured by women. Four years ago, I told you my father would focus on making childcare affordable and accessible. In President Trump's first term, we secured the largest ever increase for childcare funding, giving more than 800,000 low-income families great childcare at a cost they can afford. As part of Republican tax cuts, in 2019 alone, our child tax credit put over $2,000 into the pockets of 40 million American families. Democrat politicians recently introduced a plan to increase the child tax credit. Yet when I was fighting less than 3 years ago at the president's direction to get Congress to double the child tax credit, not a single Democrat voted to pass the law. We got it done anyway. Four years ago, I promised that President Trump would support mothers in the workforce. In his first year in office, he signed into law the first ever national paid leave tax credit. Today, 8 million more Americans have access to this benefit. Four years ago, I said that Americans needed an economy that permits people to rise again. During President Trump's first 3 years in office, 72% of all new jobs went to Americans who had been outside of the workforce. 4 years ago, I told you I would fight alongside my father, and 4 years later, here I am. Many of the issues my father has championed are not historically Republican priorities. Yet where Washington chooses sides, our president chooses common sense. Where politicians choose party, our president chooses people. Since the day he took the oath of office, I've watched my father take on the failed policies of the past and do what no leader has done before. Recently, he took dramatic action to cut the cost of prescription drugs, despite fielding angry calls from the CEOs of nearly every major pharmaceutical company. Now, when we see attack ads paid for by Big Pharma, my dad smiles and says to me, "You know, we're doing something really right if they're hitting us so hard." This spring, our president saw that American crops were going to waste because food supply chains were disrupted by the virus. He directed Secretary Perdue and me to find a way to get this nutritious food, fresh fruit, vegetables, meat, and dairy, to families most in need. Within a matter of days, we launched the Farmers to Family Food Box program, which has now delivered over 100 million meals into the hands of American families. To protect the most vulnerable among us, I've worked alongside the president as he signed into law 9 pieces of legislation to combat the evil of human trafficking. I've stood by my father's side at Dover Air Force Base as he's received our fallen heroes, and each time it has steeled his resolve to finally stop the endless foreign wars. To change the paradigm in the Middle East, he took a fresh approach. I heard foreign leaders beg him not to move the American embassy to Jerusalem, yet he delivered on a promise also made and unfulfilled by past presidents because my father knew that it was the right thing to do. Defying all expectations, just weeks ago, he rewrote history again by making a peace agreement in the Middle East, the biggest breakthrough in a quarter century. For the first time in a long time, we have a president who has called out Washington's hypocrisy, and they hate him for it. Dad, people attack you for being unconventional, but I love you for being real, and I respect you for being effective. Our president refuses to surrender his beliefs to score point with the political elite. To my father, you are the elite. You are the only people he cares about scoring points with. If these problems were easy to solve, previous presidents would have done so. But you don't achieve different results by doing things the same way. Washington has not changed Donald Trump. Donald Trump has changed Washington.
That's a great line. That is a great line.
That's the one we're going to remember. That's the one we're going to see in ads.
Well, and it's sort of
America doesn't need another empty vessel who will do whatever the media and the fringe of his party demands.
Yep.
Now more than ever, America needs 4 more years of a warrior in the White House. Tonight, I could not be more proud to introduce my father, a man I know was made for this moment in history. My fellow Americans, our First Lady and the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Well, of course they're playing this song.
Of course.
Well, Kurt, that was a pretty solid speech right there from Ivanka Trump, especially considering she's a political neophyte. The overwhelming feeling I got.
Good at it.
Yeah, right. I watched this. I watched the people that they have brought forth, even if they're not, Julia Louis-Dreyfus or whatever. I see how they're presenting themselves and delivering these messages, and I think to myself, I would think a voter would want to be a part of this club. Whatever it is that's going on in this room with these people, they want to be in on it. We lost Kurt.
This is enjoying and who love America and who aren't creepy weirdos who don't know what room to pee in. Of course you want to be with this, guys. I mean, do you think, you see the Hollywood stars, and you're like, well, they don't want anything to do with me, and man, I know about their weird pedo lifestyles. I don't want to be any part of them either. These people, you're like, oh, cool. Yeah. These remind me of my neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it is, again, it's impossible not to contrast, of course, the message with last week's message from the DNC, but also the imagery. I mean, look at what we're seeing right here versus the setting for every speech last week by the Democrats.
Yeah, a weirdo in a basement, standing in front of this lectern, just talking about what a nice guy he is. Okay, all right, Joe. Maybe you're a nice guy, but you're a senile old weirdo and you are hopelessly outclassed. Stagger along into retirement and take that horrible, horrible woman, Kamala Harris, with you.
And the president and the first lady are treating this like it's a convention. I mean, there's no balloon drop, but they're soaking in the ovation. They're making the moment last. They're letting it stretch out. It's the political theater that Americans love, when they love political theater, and they're good at it.
To the extent
All
they
right,
do.
Let's hear from the president.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Friends, delegates, and distinguished guests, please. I stand before you tonight, honored by your support, proud of the extraordinary progress we have made together over the last 4 incredible years, and brimming with confidence in the bright future we will build for America over the next 4 years. We begin this evening. Our thoughts are with the wonderful people who have just come through the wrath of Hurricane Laura. We are working closely with state and local officials in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, sparing no effort to save lives. While the hurricane was fierce, one of the strongest to make landfall in 150 years, the casualties and damage were far less than thought possible only 24 hours ago. And this is due to the great work of FEMA, law enforcement, and the individual states. I will be going this weekend, and congratulations, thank you for that great job out there. We really appreciate it. We are one national family, and we will always protect, love, and care for each other. Here tonight are the people who have made my journey possible and filled my life with so much joy. For her incredible service to our nation and its children, I want to thank our magnificent First Lady. I also want to thank my amazing daughter, Ivanka, for that introduction, and to all of my children. Ivanka, please stand up. Great job. And to all of my children and grandchildren, I love you more than words can express. I know my brother Robert is looking down on us right now from heaven. He was a great brother and was very proud of the job we are all doing. Thank you. We love you, Robert. Let us also take a moment to show our profound appreciation for a man who has always fought by our side and stood up for our values, a man of deep faith and steadfast conviction, our Vice President Mike Pence. And Mike is joined by his beloved wife, a teacher, and military mom, Karen Pence. Thank you, Karen. My fellow Americans, tonight, with a heart full of gratitude and boundless optimism, I profoundly accept this nomination for President of the United States.
You can faintly hear car horns honking and noisemakers from just around the other side of the White House. If you listen carefully, they are trying to disrupt
the Republican Party, the party of Abraham
As
Lincoln,
usual, they're failing.
goes forward united, determined, and ready to welcome millions of Democrats, independents, and anyone who believes in the greatness of America, and the and the righteous heart of the American people. In a new term as president, we will again build the greatest economy in history, quickly returning to full employment, soaring incomes, and record prosperity. We will defend America against all threats and protect America against all dangers. We will lead America into new frontiers of ambition and discovery, and we will reach for new heights of national achievement. We will rekindle new faith in our values, new pride in our history, and a new spirit of unity that can only be realized through love for our great country. Because we understand that America is not a land cloaked in darkness. America is the torch that enlightens the entire world. Gathered here at our beautiful and majestic White House, known all over the world as the People's House, we cannot help but marvel at the miracle that is our great American story. This has been the home of larger-than-life figures like Teddy Roosevelt and Andrew Jackson, who rallied Americans to bold visions of a bigger and brighter future. Within these walls lived tenacious generals like President Grant and Eisenhower, who led our soldiers in the cause of freedom. From these grounds, Thomas Jefferson sent Lewis and Clark on a daring expedition to cross a wild and uncharted continent. In the depths of a bloody civil war, President Abraham Lincoln looked out these very windows upon a half-completed Washington Monument and asked God, in his providence, to save our nation. 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor, Franklin Delano Roosevelt welcomed Winston Churchill, and just inside, they set our people on a course to victory in the Second World War. In recent months, our nation and the entire planet has been struck by a new and powerful, invisible enemy. Like those brave Americans before us, we are meeting this challenge. We are delivering life-saving therapies and will produce a vaccine before the end of the year, or maybe even sooner.
Wow. That's newsworthy.
We will defeat the virus, end the pandemic, and emerge stronger than ever before. What united generations past was an unshakable confidence in America's destiny and an unbreakable faith in the American people. They knew that our country is blessed by God and has a special purpose in this world. It is that conviction that inspired the formation of our union, our westward expansion, the abolition of slavery, the passage of civil rights, the space program, and the overthrow of fascism, tyranny, and communism. This towering American spirit has prevailed over every challenge and lifted us to the summit of human endeavor. And yet, despite all of our greatness as a nation, everything we have achieved is now in danger. This is the most important election in the history of our country. Thank you. At no time before have voters faced a clearer choice between two parties, two visions, two philosophies, or two agendas. This election will decide whether we save the American dream or whether we allow a socialist agenda to demolish our cherished destiny. It will decide whether we rapidly create millions of high-paying jobs or whether we crush our industries and send millions of these jobs overseas, as has foolishly been done for many decades. Your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans or whether we give free rein to violent anarchists and agitators and criminals who threaten our citizens. And this election will decide whether we will defend the American way of life or whether we will allow a radical movement to completely dismantle and destroy it. That won't happen. At the Democrat National Convention, Joe Biden and his party repeatedly assailed America as a land of racial, economic, and social injustice. So tonight I ask you a simple question. How can the Democrat Party ask to lead our country when it spends so much time tearing down our country? In the left's backward view, they do not see America as the most free, just, and exceptional nation on earth. Instead, they see a wicked nation that must be punished for its sins. Our opponents say that redemption for you can only come from giving power to them. This is a tired anthem spoken by every repressive movement throughout history. But in this country, we don't look to career politicians for salvation. In America, we don't turn to government to restore our souls. We put our faith in Almighty God. Joe Biden is not a savior of America's soul. He is the destroyer of America's jobs, and if given the chance, he will be the destroyer of American greatness. For 47 years, Joe Biden took the donations of blue-collar workers, gave them hugs and even kisses.
Wow.
Oh,
here he goes. Here he goes.
And told them he felt their pain. And then he flew back to
Among other
Washington
things.
and voted to ship our jobs to China and many other distant lands. Joe Biden spent his entire career outsourcing their dreams and the dreams of American workers, offshoring their jobs, opening their borders, and sending their sons and daughters to fight in endless foreign wars, wars that never ended. 4 years ago, I ran for president because I could not watch this betrayal of our country any longer. I could not sit by as career politicians let other countries take advantage of us on trade, borders, foreign policy, and national defense. Our NATO partners, as an example, were very far behind in their defense payments. But at my strong urging, they agreed to pay $130 billion more a year, the first time in over 20 years that they upped their payments. And this $130 billion will ultimately go to $400 billion a year. And Secretary General Stoltenberg, who heads NATO, was amazed after watching for so many years and said that President Trump did what no one else was able to do. Thank you. From the moment I left my former life behind, and it was a good life, I have done nothing but fight for you. I did what our political establishment never expected and could never forgive, breaking the cardinal rule of Washington politics. I kept my promise. Together, we have ended the rule of the failed political class, and they are desperate to get their power back by any means necessary. You've seen that. They are angry at me because instead of putting them first, I very simply said, America first. Thank you. Days after taking office, we shocked the Washington establishment and withdrew from the last administration's job-killing Trans-Pacific Partnership. I then immediately approved the Keystone XL and Dakota Access pipelines, ended the unfair and very costly Paris Climate Accord, and secured for the first time American energy independence. We passed record-setting tax and regulation cuts at a rate nobody had ever seen before. Within 3 short years, we built the strongest economy in the history of the world. Washington insiders asked me not to stand up to China. They pleaded with me to let China continue stealing our jobs, ripping us off, and robbing our country blind. But I kept my word to the American people. We took the toughest, boldest, strongest, and hardest-hitting action against China in American history by far. They said that it would be impossible to terminate and replace NAFTA. But again, they were wrong. Earlier this year, I ended the NAFTA nightmare and signed the
Micah, did we hit the pause button on that?
brand new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement into law.
We're good. We're good. We're good.
And right now, auto companies and others are building their plants and factories in America, not firing their employees, and not deserting us for other countries. In perhaps no area did the Washington special interests try harder to stop us than on my policy of pro-American immigration. But I refuse to back down, and today America's borders are more secure than ever before.
There's Border Patrol officers there in attendance. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed the president.
We ended catch and release, stopped asylum fraud, took down human traffickers who prey on women and children, and we have deported 20,000 gang members and 500,000 criminal aliens. We have already built 300 miles of border wall, and we are adding 10 new miles every single week. The wall will soon be complete, and it is working beyond our wildest expectations.
Wouldn't be a speech without the wall.
We are joined this evening by members of the Border Patrol Union, representing our country's courageous border agents. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Brave, brave people.
Larry, I see a Hatch Act violation.
No, I don't think he's a Border Patrol guy with the hat. Oh, wait, I see.
Hatch this, bitches. And it ain't an egg.
You know, to be fair, I'm trying to be.
You see,
I'm
this
trying to be
country
objective.
loves our law enforcement. They do.
One criticism,
They really do.
honestly, the state needs more flags.
Love and respect.
It's looking a little
When I learned that the Tennessee Valley Authority laid off hundreds of American workers
There's something
and forced
white
them
behind
to
there.
train
I don't
their
know what it is.
lower-paid foreign replacements.
Maybe it's the editorial
I promptly
board of Fox.
removed the chairman of the board, and now those talented American workers have been rehired and are back providing power to Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Virginia. They have their old jobs back, and some are here with us this evening. Please stand. You went through a lot. Please stand. Thank you. Thank you very much. You've been through a lot. Thank you very much. Last month, I took on Big Pharma. You think that's easy? It's not. And signed orders that will massively lower the cost of your prescription drugs and give critically ill patients access to life-saving cures. We passed the decades-long-awaited right to try. Right to try. We also passed VA accountability and VA choice. Our great veterans, we're taking care of our veterans. 91% approval rating this month, the VA, given by our veterans. First time anything like that's ever happened. By the end of my first term, we will have approved more than 300 federal judges, including 2 great new Supreme Court justices. And to bring prosperity to our forgotten inner cities, we worked hard to pass historic criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones, and long-term funding of historically black colleges and universities. And before the China virus came in, produced the best unemployment numbers for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans ever recorded. And I say very modestly that I have done more for the African American community than any president since Abraham Lincoln, our first Republican president. And I have done more in 3 years for the black community than Joe Biden has done in 47 years. And when I'm reelected, the best is yet to come.
Wow. I mean, straight up audacious statements, but he can back it up with stats and facts and reality. And it's powerful. And he's, you know, he's not shy. He's not shy to say.
Look, there's no better salesman in America than Donald Trump. And that's what he's doing tonight. He's selling America on 4 more years. And I think it's working.
Thank you very much.
He's got a hell of a pitch and a hell of a track record.
When I took office, the Middle East was in total chaos. ISIS was rampaging, Iran was on the rise, and the war in Afghanistan had no end in sight. I withdrew from the terrible one-sided Iran nuclear deal. Unlike many presidents before me, I kept my promise, recognized Israel's true capital, and moved our embassy to Jerusalem.
Take a bow, Jared.
But not only did we talk about it as a future site, we got it built. Rather than spending $1 billion on a new building as planned, we took an already owned existing building in a better location. Real estate deal, right? And opened it
perfect
at a cost of less than $500,000. Many things like that government is doing right now. We also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And this month we achieved the first Middle East peace deal in 25 years. Thank you to UAE. Thank you to Israel. In addition, we obliterated 100% of the ISIS caliphate and killed its founder and leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Then in a separate operation, we eliminated the world's #1 terrorist by far, Qasem Soleimani. Unlike previous administrations, I have kept America out of new wars, and our troops are coming home. We have spent nearly $2.5 trillion on completely rebuilding our military, which was very badly depleted when I took office, as you know. This includes 3 separate pay raises for our great warriors.
He's got a lot of achievements, Larry. I was informed he had none.
Yeah, he does.
It makes me,
yeah,
it makes me think the mainstream media is lying to me.
The Space Force, the first new branch of the United States military since the Air Force was created almost 75 years ago. We have spent the last 4 years reversing the damage Joe Biden inflicted over the last 47 years. Biden's record is a shameful roll call of the most catastrophic betrayals and blunders in our lifetime.
Damn!
He has spent his entire career on the wrong side of history. Biden voted for the NAFTA disaster, the single worst trade deal ever enacted. He supported China's entry into the World Trade Organization, one of the greatest economic disasters of all time. After those Biden calamities, the United States lost 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs. We laid off workers in Michigan, Ohio, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and many other states. They didn't want to hear Biden's hollow words of empathy. They wanted their jobs back. As Vice President, he supported the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have been a death sentence for the U.S. auto industry. He backed the horrendous South Korea trade deal, which took many jobs from our country and which I've reversed and made a great deal for our country. He repeatedly supported mass amnesty for illegal immigrants. He voted for the Iraq War. He opposed the mission to take out Osama bin Laden. He opposed killing Soleimani. He oversaw the rise of ISIS and cheered the rise of China as a positive development for America and the world, some positive development. That's why China supports Joe Biden and desperately wants him to win. I can tell you that upon very good information. China would own our country if Joe Biden got elected. Unlike Biden, I will hold them fully accountable for the tragedy that they caused all over the world. In recent months, our nation and the world has been hit by the once-in-a-century pandemic that China allowed to spread around the globe. They could have stopped it, but they allowed it to come out. We are grateful to be joined tonight by several of our incredible nurses and first responders. Please stand and accept our profound thanks and gratitude.
Didn't see a Democrats doing that, Larry.
Many Americans, including me, have sadly lost friends and cherished loved ones to this horrible disease. As one nation, we mourn, we grieve, and we hold in our hearts forever the memories of all of those lives that have been so tragically taken, so unnecessary. In their honor, we will unite. In their memory, we will overcome. And when the China virus hit, we launched the largest national mobilization since World War II. Invoking the Defense Production Act, we produced the world's largest supply of ventilators. Not a single American who has needed a ventilator has been denied a ventilator, which is a miracle. Good job heading the task force by our great Vice President. Thank you very much, Mark. Please stand up.
I have a sense that this
We
speech
shipped
is going to
hundreds
go
of millions of
longer than
masks,
scheduled.
gloves, and gowns to our frontline
Yeah.
healthcare workers.
It's going to
To
go
protect
for a
our
while.
nation's seniors, we rushed supplies, testing
He's
kits.
listing
and
what he did. Now he's
personal
going to list what he's going to do.
Nursing homes,
Then
we
he's going
gave
to
everything you can possibly give, and we're still giving it because we're taking care of our
He's
senior
going to
citizens.
boot Joe Biden around like Renfield got booted around
The Army Corps of
Dracula.
Engineers built field hospitals, and the Navy deployed our great hospital ships. We developed from scratch the largest and most advanced testing system anywhere in the world. America has tested more than every country in Europe put together and more than every nation in the Western Hemisphere combined. Think of that. We have conducted 40 million more tests than the next closest nation, which is India. We developed a wide array of effective treatments, including a powerful antibody treatment known as convalescent plasma. You saw that on Sunday night when we announced it. That will save thousands and thousands of lives. Thanks to advances, we have pioneered the fatality rate, and you look at it and you look at the numbers, it has been reduced by 80% since April, 80%. The United States has among the lowest case fatality rates of any major country anywhere in the world. The European Union's case fatality rate is nearly 3 times higher than ours, but you don't hear that. They don't write about that. They don't want to write about that. They don't want you to know those things. Altogether, the nations of Europe have experienced a 30% greater increase in excess mortality than the United States. Think of that. we enacted the largest package of financial relief in American history. Thanks to our Paycheck Protection Program, we have saved or supported more than 50 million American jobs. That's one of the reasons that we're advancing so rapidly with our economy. Great job. As a result, we have seen the smallest economic contraction of any major Western nation, and we are recovering at a much faster rate than anybody. Over the past 3 months, we have gained over 9 million jobs, and that's a record in the history of our country. Unfortunately, from the beginning, our opponents have shown themselves capable of nothing but a partisan ability to criticize. When I took bold action to issue a travel ban on China very early indeed, Joe Biden called it hysterical and xenophobic. And then I introduced a ban on Europe very early again. If we had listened to Joe, hundreds of thousands more Americans would have died. Instead of following the science, Joe Biden wants to inflict a painful shutdown on the entire country. His shutdown would inflict unthinkable and lasting harm on our nation's children, families, and citizens of all backgrounds. The cost of the Biden shutdown would be measured in increased drug overdoses, depression, alcohol addiction, suicides, heart attacks, economic devastation, job loss, and much more. Joe Biden's plan is not a solution to the virus, but rather it's a surrender to the virus.
That's a great line.
My administration
it's amazing
has a very different approach. To save as many lives as possible, we are focusing on the science, the facts, and the data. We are aggressively sheltering those at highest risk, especially the elderly, while allowing lower-risk Americans to safely return to work and to school. And we want to see so many of those great states be opened by Democrats. We want them to be open. They have to be open. They have to get back to work. They have to get back to work, and they have to get back to school. Most importantly, we are marshaling America's scientific genius to produce a vaccine in record time. Under Operation Warp Speed, we have 3 different vaccines in the final stage of trials. Right now, years ahead of what has been achieved before. Nobody thought it could ever be done this fast. Normally, it would be years, and we did it in a matter of a few months. We're producing them in advance so that hundreds of millions of doses will be quickly available. We will have a safe and effective vaccine this year, and together we will crush the virus. At the Democrat convention, you barely heard a word about their agenda. But that's not because they don't have one. It's because their agenda is the most extreme set of proposals ever put forward by a major party nominee. Joe Biden may claim he is an ally of the light, but when it comes to his agenda, Biden wants to keep us completely in the dark. He doesn't have a clue. He has pledged a $4 trillion tax hike on almost all American families, which will totally collapse our rapidly improving economy, and once again, record stock markets that we have right now will also collapse. That means your 401ks, that means all of the stocks that you have. On the other hand, just as I did in my first term, I will cut taxes even further for hardworking moms and dads. I will not raise taxes. I will cut them, and very substantially. And we will also provide tax credits to bring jobs out of China back to America, and we will impose tariffs on any company that leaves America to produce jobs overseas. We will make sure our companies and jobs stay in our country, as I've already been doing for quite some time, if you've noticed. Joe Biden's agenda is made in China. My agenda is made in the USA.
These are all really memorable lines. Biden.
That's a solid one.
Yeah, Biden's policy toward COVID is a surrender.
Biden has promised
his whole
to abolish
COVID
the
sequence
production
here,
of American oil,
he's bragging about
coal,
COVID, not
shale,
apologizing.
and natural gas, laying
Exactly,
waste
as
to
he
the
should.
economies of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Colorado, and New Mexico, destroying those states, absolutely destroying those states and others. Millions of jobs will be lost, and energy prices will soar. These same policies led to crippling power outages in California just last week. Everybody saw that. Tremendous power outage. Nobody's seen anything like it, but we saw that last week in California. How can Joe Biden claim to be an ally of the light when his own party can't even keep the lights on? Joe Biden's campaign has even published a 110-page policy platform. You can't get away from this. Co-authored with far-left Senator, crazy Bernie Sanders. The Biden-Bernie manifesto calls for suspending all removals of illegal aliens, implementing nationwide catch and release, and providing illegal aliens with free, taxpayer-funded lawyers. Everybody gets a lawyer. Come on over to our country. Everybody has a lawyer. We have a lawyer for you. That's what we need is more lawyers.
Hey!
Joe Biden recently raised his hand on the debate stage and promised to your giveaway he was going to give it away, your health care dollars to illegal immigrants, which is going to bring massive number of immigrants into our country. Massive numbers will pour into our country in order to get all of the goodies that they want to give, education, health care, everything. He also supports deadly sanctuary cities that protect criminal aliens. He promised to end national security travel bans from jihadist nations, and he pledged to increase refugee admissions by 700%. This is in the manifesto. The Biden plan would eliminate America's borders in the middle of a global pandemic, and he's even talking about taking the wall down. How about that? Biden also vowed to oppose school choice and close all charter schools, ripping away the ladder of opportunity for Black and Hispanic children. In a second term, I will expand charter schools and provide school choice to every family in America. And we will always treat our teachers with the tremendous respect that they deserve. Great people.
That's for the suburban housewives there.
Joe Biden claims he has empathy for the vulnerable, yet the party he leads supports the extreme late-term abortion of defenseless babies right up until the moment of birth. Democrat leaders talk about moral decency, but they have no problem with stopping a baby's beating heart in the 9th month of pregnancy. Democrat politicians refuse to protect innocent life, and then they lecture us about morality and saving America's soul. Tonight, we proudly declare that all children, born and unborn, have a God-given right to life.
Can you imagine Bush saying that?
During the Democrat convention, the words "under God" were removed from the Pledge of Allegiance. Not once, but twice. We will never do that. But the fact is, this is where they're coming from. Like it or not, this is where they're coming from. If the left gains power, they will demolish the suburbs, confiscate your guns, and appoint justices who will wipe away your Second Amendment and other constitutional freedoms. Biden is a Trojan horse for socialism. If Joe Biden doesn't have the strength to stand up to wild-eyed Marxists like Bernie Sanders and his fellow radicals, and there are many, we see them all the time, it's incredible actually, then how is he ever going to stand up for you? He's not. The most dangerous aspect of the Biden platform is the attack on public safety. The Biden-Bernie manifesto calls for abolishing cash bail, immediately releasing 400,000 criminals onto the streets and into your neighborhoods. When asked if he supports cutting police funding, Joe Biden replied, yes, absolutely. When Congresswoman Ilhan Omar called the Minneapolis Police Department a cancer that is rotten to the root, Biden wouldn't disavow her support and reject her endorsement. He proudly displayed it shortly later on his website. Displayed it in big letters. Make no mistake, if you give power to Joe Biden, the radical left will defund police departments all across America. They will pass federal legislation to reduce law enforcement nationwide. They will make every city look like Democrat-run Portland, Oregon. No one will be safe in Biden's America. My administration will always stand with the men and women of law enforcement.
Didn't see that Law and Order thing coming. Oh, wait, yeah, I did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a theme.
Every day, police officers risk their lives to keep us safe.
Yeah,
and every year, many sacrifice their lives in the line of duty. One of these incredible Americans was Detective Miostas Familia. She was part of a team of American heroes called the NYPD, or New York's Finest, who I was very, very proud to get their endorsement just the other day. Great people, great, great people. They were allowed to do their job. You'd have no crime in New York. Rudy Giuliani knows that better than anybody. Thank you. 3 years ago, on the 4th of July weekend, Detective Familia was on duty in her vehicle when she was ambushed just after midnight and murdered by a monster who hated her purely for wearing the badge. Detective Familia was a single mom. She recently asked for the night shift so she could spend more time with her kids. 2 years ago, I stood in front of the U.S. Capitol alongside those beautiful children and held their grandmother's hand as they mourned their terrible loss, and we honored Detective Familia's extraordinary life. It was extraordinary. Detective Familia's 3 children are with us this evening. Genesis, Peter, Delilah, we are so grateful to have you here tonight. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I'll be in the party that sides with these folks.
I promise you that we will treasure your mom in our memories forever. We must remember that the overwhelming majority of police officers in this country, and that's the overwhelming majority, are noble, courageous, and honorable. We have to give law enforcement, our police, back their power. They are afraid to act. They are afraid to lose their pension. They are afraid to lose their jobs. And by being afraid, they are not able to do the job that they so desperately want to do for you. And those who suffer most are the great people who they protect and who they want to protect at an even higher level. When there is police misconduct, the justice system must hold wrongdoers fully and completely accountable, and it will. But when we can never have a situation where things are going on as they are today, we must never allow mob rule. We can never allow mob rule. In the strongest possible terms, the Republican Party condemns the rioting, looting, arson, and violence we have seen in Democrat-run cities all, like Kenosha, Minneapolis, Portland, Chicago, and New York, and many others, Democrat-run. There is violence and danger in the streets of many Democrat-run cities throughout America. This problem could easily be fixed if they wanted to. Just call. We're ready to go in. We'll take care of your problem in a matter of hours. Just call. We have to wait for the call. It's too bad we have to, but we have to wait for the call. We must always have law and order. All federal crimes are being investigated, prosecuted, and punished to the fullest extent of the law. When the anarchists started ripping down our statues and monuments right outside, I signed an order immediately, 10 years in prison, and it was a miracle. It all stopped. No more statues. They said, that's just too long, as they looked at a statue. I think we'll rip it down. Then they said 10 years in prison. I think that's too long. Let's go home. During their convention, Joe Biden and his supporters remained completely silent about the rioters and criminals spreading mayhem in Democrat-run cities. They never even mentioned it during their entire convention. Never once mentioned. Now they're starting to mention it because their poll numbers are going down like a rock in water. It's too late, Joe. In the face of left-wing anarchy and mayhem in Minneapolis, Chicago, and other cities, Joe Biden's campaign did not condemn it. They donated to it. At least 13 members of Joe Biden's campaign staff donated to a fund to bail out vandals, arsonists, anarchists, looters, and rioters from jail. Here tonight is the grieving family of retired police captain David Dorn, a 38-year veteran of the St. Louis Police Department, a great man and a highly respected man by all. In June, Captain Dorn was shot and killed as he tried to protect a store from rioters and looters, or as the Democrats would call them, peaceful protesters. They call them peaceful protesters. We're honored to be joined tonight by his wonderful wife, Ann, and beloved family members, Brian and Kaylin. To each of you, we will never forget the heroic legacy of Captain David Dorn. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great man. Great man. As long as I am president, we will defend the absolute right of every American citizen to live in security, dignity, and peace. If the Democrat Party wants to stand with anarchists, agitators, rioters, looters, and flag burners, that is up to them. But I, as your president, will not be a part of it. The Republican Party will remain the voice of the patriotic heroes who keep America safe and salute the American flag.
Boom.
All right. Now build to your final crescendo, your final cadence, and let's shoot off those fireworks. Let's get.
Last year,
I'm old.
over
I'm
1,000
tired.
African Americans were murdered as a result of violent crime
And
in
another
just 4
thing.
Democrat-run cities. The top 10 most dangerous cities in the country are run by Democrats and have been for many decades.
Oh, the fact checkers are
more
going to collectively
African-Americans
wet
are
their
victims
panties over this.
and victims of violent crime in these communities.
I happen to know
Joe
one
Biden
of them
and the left
goes
ignore
commando.
these American victims. I never will.
Well, then he's going to wet his
the radical
skirt.
left takes power, They will apply their disastrous policies to every city, town, and suburb in America. Just imagine if the so-called peaceful demonstrators in the streets were in charge of every lever of power in the U.S. government. Just think of that. Liberal politicians claim to be concerned about the strength of American institutions. But who exactly is attacking them? Who is hiring the radical professors, judges, and prosecutors?
So this is good stuff.
Who is trying to abolish immigration enforcement and establish speech codes designed to muzzle dissent? In every case, the attacks on American institutions are being waged by radical left. Always remember, they are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Sounds like it ought to be a book title.
And it's been going on from before I even got elected.
Yeah, Andrew Breitbart giving a bit of a fist bump on that one, talking about radical professors and
remember this, they
judges.
spied on
He
my
would not be standing there if it was not for
campaign,
Andrew
and
Breitbart.
they got caught. Let's see now
Plain
what
and simple.
happens. We must reclaim our independence from the left's repressive mandates. Americans are exhausted trying to keep up with the latest lists of approved words and phrases and the ever more restrictive political decrees. Many things have a different name now, and the rules are constantly changing. The goal of cancel culture is to make decent Americans live in fear of being fired, expelled, shamed, humiliated, and driven from society as we know it. The far left wants to coerce you into saying what you know to be false and scare you out of saying what you know to be true. It's very sad. But on November 3rd, you can send them a very thundering message they will never forget.
Tie in the go to hell factor with the ballot. Ah, brilliant.
Well, it's so powerful for him to say, you know, your vote for me is sending a message to the people you despise. That actually works,
exactly.
I think.
Thank you.
Like, I love supporting Trump because I know it pisses off all the right people.
Exactly.
Joe Biden is weak. He takes his marching orders from liberal hypocrites who drive their cities into the ground while fleeing far from the scene of the wreckage. These same liberals want to eliminate school choice while they enroll their children in the finest private schools in the land. They want to open our borders while living in Waldorf compounds and communities in the best neighborhoods in the world. They want to defund the police while they have armed guards for themselves. This November, we must turn the page forever on this failed political class. The fact is, I'm here.
Class warfare, Larry.
What's the name of that building?
The one behind the flags.
But I'll say it differently. The fact is, we're here and they're not.
Well done. He was kind of workmanlike early on, but he's hitting his stride now.
To me, one of the most beautiful buildings anywhere in the world. And it's not a building, it's a home, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, he's like, I don't need your script.
Not even a house. It's
Donald Trump. I'm going to just roll like this.
With an incredible history. But it's all because of you. Together we will write the next chapter of the great American story. Over the next 4 years, we will make America into the manufacturing superpower of the world. We will expand opportunity zones. Thank you, Tim Scott. Bring home our medical supply chains, and we will end our resilience for bad things. We will go right after China. We will not rely on them one bit. We're taking our business out of China. We are bringing it home. We want our business to come home. We will continue to reduce taxes and regulations at levels not seen before. We will create 10 million jobs in the next 10 months, and it'll be higher than that. We will hire more police, increase penalties for assaults on law enforcement, and surge federal prosecutors into high-crime communities. We will ban deadly sanctuary cities and ensure that federal health care is protected for American citizens, not for illegal aliens. We will have strong borders, and I've said for years, without borders, we don't have a country. Don't have a country. Strike down terrorists who threaten our people, and keep America out of endless and costly foreign wars. We will appoint prosecutors, judges, justices who believe in enforcing the law, not enforcing their own political agenda, which is illegal. We will ensure equal justice for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. We will uphold your religious liberty and defend your Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms.
That seems to resonate.
Buy guns and ammo.
Buy guns and ammo. Free Kyle.
And if we don't win, your Second Amendment doesn't have a chance. I can tell you that. I have totally protected it. We will protect Medicare and Social Security. We will always and very strongly protect patients with pre-existing conditions. And that is a pledge from the entire Republican Party. Thank you, Kevin. We will end surprise medical billing, require price transparency, and further reduce the cost of prescription drugs and health insurance premiums. They're coming way down. We will greatly expand energy development, continuing to remain the #1 in the world and keep America energy independent. And for those of you that still drive a car, look how low your gasoline bill is. You haven't seen that in a long time.
Those of you who still drive a car.
What?
We will win the race to 5G and build the world's best cyber and missile defense, already under construction. We will fully restore patriotic education to our schools and always protect. We will always, always protect free speech on college campuses. And we put a very big penalty in. If they do anything having to do with your free speech, colleges have to pay a tremendous, tremendous financial penalty. And again, it's amazing how open they've been lately. We will launch a new age of American ambition in space. America will land the first woman on the moon, and the United States will be the first nation to plant its beautiful flag on Mars. This is the unifying national agenda that will bring our country together. So tonight I say to all Americans, this is the most important election in the history of our country. There has never been such a difference between two parties or two individuals in ideology, philosophy, or vision than there is right now. Our opponents believe that America is a depraved nation. We want our sons and daughters to know the truth. America is the greatest and most exceptional nation in the history of the world. Our country wasn't built by cancel culture, speech codes, and soul-crushing conformity. We are not a nation of timid spirits. We are a nation of fierce, proud, and independent American patriots. We're a nation of pilgrims, pioneers, adventurers, explorers, and trailblazers who refuse to be tied down, held back, or in any way reined in. Americans have steel in their spines, grit in their souls, and fire in their hearts. There is no one like us on earth. I want every child in America to know that you are part of the most exciting and incredible adventure in human history. No matter where your family comes from, no matter your background in America, anyone can rise. With hard work, devotion, and drive, you can reach any goal and achieve every ambition. Our American ancestors sailed across the perilous ocean to build a new life on a new continent. They braved the freezing winters, crossed the raging rivers, scaled the rocky peaks, trekked the dangerous forests, and worked from dawn till dusk. These pioneers didn't have money, they didn't have fame, but they had each other. They loved their families, they loved their country, and they loved their God. When opportunity beckoned, they picked up their Bibles, packed up their belongings, climbed into their covered wagons, and set out west for the next adventure. Ranchers and miners, cowboys and sheriffs, farmers and settlers, they pressed on past the Mississippi to stake a claim in the wild frontier. Legends were born: Wyatt Earp, Annie Oakley, Davy Crockett, and Buffalo Bill. Americans built their beautiful homesteads on the open range. Soon they had churches and communities, then towns, and with time, great centers of industry and commerce. That is who they were. Americans build their future. We don't tear down our past. We are the nation that won a revolution, toppled tyranny and fascism, and delivered millions into freedom. We laid down the railroads, built the great ships, raised up the skyscrapers, revolutionized industry, and sparked a new age of scientific discovery. We set the trends in art and music, radio and film, sport and literature, and we did it all with style and confidence and flair, because that is who we are. Whenever our way of life was threatened, our heroes answered the call. From Yorktown to Gettysburg, from Normandy to Iwo Jima, American patriots raced into cannon blasts, bullets, and bayonets to rescue American liberty. They had no fear, but America didn't stop there. We looked into the sky and kept pressing onward. We built a 6 million pound rocket and launched it thousands of miles into space. We did it so that two brave patriots could stand tall and salute our wondrous American flag planted on the face of the moon. For America, nothing is impossible. Over the next 4 years, we will prove worthy of this magnificent legacy. We will reach stunning new heights, and we will show that the world, for America, there is a dream, and it is not beyond your reach. Together we are unstoppable. Together we are unbeatable, because together we are the proud citizens of the United States of America. And on November 3rd,
This thing is,
we will make America safer. We will make America stronger. We will make America prouder. And we will make America greater than ever before. I am very, very proud to be the nominee of the Republican Party. I love you all. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, it was a marathon speech, a little over an hour by my clock, and I'm getting crap on Twitter because 20 minutes ago I said wrap it up, and they're like, "Well, we love it." But, you know, the president starts to lose energy toward the end of these things. You could tell he was fading himself. So
yeah,
I'm glad it. Yeah.
Ooh, fireworks.
Oh, yeah, they got the fireworks around the Washington Monument. By the way, just so people know, because you're going to hear a lot, oh, look, he's sweating. He's a hot mess. He's sweating. It is 85 degrees in Washington, D.C. with 60% humidity. He's under theater lighting, television lighting. There's no air conditioning. Oh, that's cool. There's no air conditioning, because it's outdoors. And he was in a full suit, and I thought he did fine. It was a very good speech. It had some great lines. He went right after Joe Biden. Wrap it up for us, Kurt Schlichter.
Well, I think it did go a little long. It had more endings than Lord of the Rings, but it was.
I'm going to steal that line immediately.
Okay, look, I thought it started out very workmanlike, kind of reminded me of Pence's speech, almost a traditional speech. And as he got more into the rhythm, more comfortable, it got looser. And I think he's better when he's looser. Look, again, we're talking the difference between an A- and an A at various times. This was a great speech.
Yeah.
Lots of memorable lines. If somebody is watching this who is unsure of who he's going to vote for and had watched Biden in the sex dungeon where he taped his speech as opposed to his usual sessions with his dominatrix.
Okay.
I think it's pretty clear. Really, who do you want to be? The speech was laid out really well because he just started with the achievements. And, we watch this stuff and we know them, but when you put them together, it takes a long time to go through them.
Yep.
You're going all around the world of things he did. You're going all through the country. You had a brilliant point earlier where you talked about how he confronted directly the COVID thing and took credit for ameliorating what could have been an utter disaster and would have been under Biden.
Yeah, he was not defensive about COVID. He wasn't responding to false attacks from Democrats or the media about COVID. He wasn't apologizing. He was bragging. He said, "Look at what we did in this COVID." I mean, that's what he does. And it was a very, very smart strategic tactic. We'll see what happens, and there's a long way to go between now and Election Day. I can only say, if you're comparing the two conventions, that was a great speech to finish a great convention. And now this visual, this finale, compare this to Joe and Dr. Jill and Kamala and Mr. Kamala, whatever the hell his name is, standing there in darkness wearing masks, looking at a bunch of cars. I mean, it's just they put on a great show, and they're finishing it with a spectacular ending. And good. I am proud to be a member of the party that put on this convention, and I rarely say
and
that.
I'm proud. And I'm proud. It's more than that. I'm proud to be the party that has these people in it, that believes these things, that says these things, that lives these lives. The Democrats were a non. You want to talk divisive? Talk about the Democrats. But of course, no one's talking about the Democrats. Their convention was last week. There was no bump. It's gone with the wind. It's a punchline. This is what people are talking about. These explosions, these fireworks. That's what you got from the public. The Democrats now have got to be going, the smart Democrats, have got to be going, oh, gosh, we are so hosed. We are so hosed.
Yeah, Democrats are going to have to rethink. I suspect we will be witnessing a relaunch again of the Biden campaign, and I will bet you dollars to donuts in the next week, Joe Biden will be in Minnesota or Wisconsin or
he says
Florida.
He's going up there. He says he's going to Wisconsin, which will be a giant abortion. Here's the thing. I was watching Fox earlier, and I was talking to Ed Morrissey about it. Fox has learned and stopped interrupting everything after the first night and all the criticism it got. But it did play an ad, and the Biden guys thought they were super clever. They bought a Biden ad. That ad was aspirational. It was very nice. It was about loving America. It would fit right in the Republican convention. It would not have fit in theirs. Larry, they are terrified about what they've seen these last 4 days. They are going to try and copy it. They're going to try and relaunch. It's going to be Opto Joe, the voice of the smiling voice of the future, and it ain't going to work.
All right, and on that final analysis from Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist at Townhall, we are going to wrap things up. A huge thank you to all of you for being with us over these 4 days, to all of our guests that we've had, from Mercedes Schlapp to Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Katie Pavlich, Guy Benson, Ed Morrissey, the whole team, Chris Stigall, of course, Micah Raitt, our fantastic digital content producer at townhall.com, for engineering this entire thing. Not a whole lot of analysis that we can give to fireworks going off, but I'll tell you what we'll do. If we want to keep you're enjoying it, Kurt and I'll check out, and you can continue watching these images as long as the stream is available to us. And on that, we will bid you a good night, and congratulations to all of you Republicans on your great convention, and onward to Election Day. Good night, everybody.
Adios. Cheryl.